direct deposits.
Read call or?
I don't know where Mark's at either. I got his email in that order.
Read. Charted with a minute, you can't get my last name.
I don't know why he's not here. Mark's usually here now, really. Okay.
So do we start with the reading or do we wait?
Wait a minute.
Mark just said oops.
Oh,
Yeah, I just texted.
tell him we'll talk really slow.
Second,
Yeah, we'll talk on the second part.
you text her.
No, I mean, I'm assuming.
He is a little short.
Mhm.
Are you ready? Do you want me to wait? Okay. Dayton Utility Board meeting is now in session. Roll call. Everyone's here? Okay. Before we do anything else, Kimberly Wright asked if she could address the council now instead of waiting to sit through everything else. So, we're gonna let you know. If that's okay?
Yeah.
Oh.
Thank you. Oh, excuse me. Hi everyone, my name's Kimberly Wright. Can you hear me? Do I need to flip
The bottom of it.
Thank you. Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kimberly Wright. I live at 647 Marquis Circle here in Dayton, Indiana. I just wanted to briefly address the council this evening. We had initially had a meeting set for 7 o'clock this evening for the Dayton Redevelopment Commission, and as the council is aware, and I'm not certain if the public's aware, I have recently announced that I am to be running for Judge of Tippecanoe County Superior Court 4, and I filed all of my paperwork with the state to do that on January 10th. And on January 10th, I sent to, I believe, Michelle, because I didn't have all of your email addresses to forward it to all of you, but hopefully all of you received that resignation letter. Initially, my resignation had been intended to be effective January 15th today after our redevelopment commission meeting, simply because I believed we would be addressing whatever business would be in front of the commission on that, or on this evening's date. It's my understanding that the council does have other issues that have to be resolved prior to another redevelopment commission meeting being set. And because of some of the Indiana Judicial Commission requirements of judicial candidates, plus some other personal matters that I felt weighed heavily into my decision regarding resigning, I had originally made that date of January 15th as my resignation date so that I could finish up some things that we had started back in November. As of this point in time, if the council would like, I would be happy to stay on until February 15th or such date that we would be setting another redevelopment commission meeting so that we can address those issues that may come before us, and that I can make a final appearance and final resignation at that point. I did want to briefly thank everyone, not only on this commission, for, I've gotten some feedback as to the current town council wanting to retain me on the commission. I've also appreciated the support of the person who I believe nominated me, but also approached me, Mr. Stevenson. Thank you for believing in me, and also appreciating whatever skills you believed I was bringing to the table for that commission. Also, any of the prior town council members who are here tonight, I appreciate your support as well in believing me and believing that I had something to bring to the table to that commission. Also would like to thank Ms. Marsh, who I believe is here tonight. Mrs. Marsh, I'm not sure how you want to address Cindy Marsh, because she did always encourage me to stay involved with the town business, even though sometimes she and I agree on matters and sometimes we disagree on matters. We do try to set a better example of cooperating with each other and talking things over. With that in mind, I just wanted to offer to the town council the benefit, I guess, of having me stay on for another month, or to such a date that the council may decide the issues before them and that we can have another commission meeting. But following that next meeting, I will be resigning. I do also recognize that I owe the council minutes, and I will be getting those done. I'm not accustomed to being secretary. Usually I am treasurer or another position on any commissions or councils that I've been on before. So Michelle has been helping me with that. She had promised to do those, and I asked her to please allow me to take that burden off of her. So she's been kind. I've had a couple of technical difficulties, but otherwise it's just kind of been a busy holiday season and busy January for me. So with that, I thank you and wish you all the best in the rest of Dayton's business going forward. Thanks.
Thank you. I think if Kimberly's able to stay on through our February meeting, I think that would be beneficial to the redevelopment committee.
I agree with that.
Yes.
For sure.
You'll stay on through the February meeting?
It's on the February meeting.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I need a motion to approve and move the claims docket from January 13th, 2019 to the regular meeting.
Make a motion to approve and move the claims docket January 13, 2019. 15.
Oh,
15.
Yeah.
thanks, guys. How do I fix that?
No, I don't know.
Okay. I need a motion to approve and move that.
You said.
Okay, there's been a motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Sorry, I missed that. Who made the motion?
I did.
Ron, and then Stan, you seconded?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Motion carries?
Correct.
Okay, motion carries. Adjustment report. Commissioner Long.
So on the adjustment report, you just see there, we did get the tax collection regarding the liens that we had placed on multiple properties. So you just see the adjustment of the payments that we received from those liens. There was some meter reading errors, also transfer from tenant back to landlord adjustments, and then Dollar General, you'll see that there was an extremely large adjustment. But we found out that on our Neptune meter reading side, it was reading one more decimal, so it was giving an extremely high. So I was able to talk to tech support and they got that fixed. So that is all that you see on the adjustment report.
Clerk Treasurer report.
Oh, we got a motion.
Oh, thank you. I need a motion to approve the adjustment report.
I make a motion to approve the adjustment report.
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Clerk Treasurer report?
I don't have anything for this side.
Okay. Read.
Yeah, the only thing for utilities is update regarding the easement agreement with the United Methodist Church. Things are moving forward, we're just not all the way finalized there, but I've been in touch with Ron Francis, and we're just basically trying to get everything scheduled to close on the purchase documents and everything that the town will need to process that payment for the cost of the easement. And then I think if we get that stuff taken care of, then we'll be ready to sign the easement documents, and if there's any changes needed, we can address that at that time. So that's all I have.
Okay, thanks. Reports of council members?
None.
Okay. New and old business? None? Perfect. Mark,
I would just move him to the regular.
do I make a motion to move him? Or we just move him? Okay. Comments from the residents? Do I have to ask for a motion to adjourn? Or do I say adjourn? Okay, I need a
I make a
motion.
motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Town board meeting will come to order, roll call, everybody's here, all
Hey,
five of us.
Can you give me just a second? I just have to stop and start. So they're separate.
Do we have to sign?
Usually it's,
Yeah, after the
starts
original.
and passes them down. They all initial.
Okay, now you're good.
So the,
Yeah, even the,
oh,
see in the first page you can sign. Okay, ready?
Yep.
Okay, everybody's here, all five members. We need a motion to approve the claims the 15th of 2020. Motion.
sorry.
Approve the claims.
Second. I second it. We've got a motion to approve the claims and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion passed. We need a motion to approve the allowance docket 12/1/219 to 12/31/219 in a second. We need
I had one question of that. On, that's this, right? Okay, on Mark's, on the front page where it says overtime,
That's like when he gets called in to do
Okay.
the emergency things.
okay.
Yeah.
And I thought I had one question. Oh, yes. On the second page, for the clothing allowance, Robert Loop, he got paid a clothing allowance of $300 on 12/7, then another clothing allowance of $300 on 12/21.
So there was an issue that we corrected. So when I took over and I was then notified in like the middle of the year that nobody had gotten paid it, because everybody else's clothing allowance was already in the system, but Robert's wasn't. So we learned that, because like there is a separate line for clothing allowance, and they get a set amount. It's not like an
Yeah.
hourly or whatever, it's
Right.
a salary. So we learned, because it was brought to the attention when I was doing the end of the year stuff, that I freaked out because I saw that he was getting the money. And so I called Keystone and I was like, what's going on? I don't even touch that line. And they said, they learned as well that even if I never touch that line because it was clicked as salary, that he was getting it. So he has repaid back almost 90% of that, and then for the next 2 months, we're just taking money out of his check to finish paying back what he got back. And then he did not get the clothing allowance that the officers just got on this paycheck that they just got. So he's repaying back that money. He's already paid back $2,000 of it. And then just for 2 months, we're taking $200 out of his paycheck to repay the final of it. So that's, yeah.
Okay,
We, like I said, we never touched it,
okay.
or I would have never realized, so. And nobody caught it in all the claims dockets that were approved. So it was a smack on all of us.
Okay, awesome.
But yeah, we got it fixed, so we're good now. Yep.
Thanks. Okay, make a motion to approve the allowance docket, 12/1 to 12/31.
I make a motion to approve the allowance docket 12/1 to 219 to 12/31/2019.
Second.
I thought I didn't I?
Oh, yeah, that's right, you did. Okay. We have a, sorry, forgot what
Or no?
we have a motion for the allowance docket in a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Allowance docket passes. Need a motion to approve the revenue report at 12/31/2019.
I make a motion to approve the revenue report from 12/31/2019.
A second.
We have a motion and a second for the revenue report. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion passes. Need a motion for the approval of the appropriation report 12/31/2019.
I make a motion to approve the appropriations report from 12/31/2019.
A second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the appropriation report. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say no. Motion passes. Need a motion for the bank reconciliation, reconcilement of December 2019.
I make a motion to approve the bank reconciliation from December 2019.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say no. Okay, passes. Corporate treasurer report.
So the only thing that I have, so the first thing, so as we all discussed about the salaries and how the board's gonna look into it over the next couple months, over the past, week, because you guys got this Friday, I think it was. So over the past week prior to that, I looked into 35 different towns that were around our same population or lower, and got the salaries for the clerk treasurer, the utility clerk, the maintenance superintendent, and the marshal, and just put that together for you guys. And then along with also, there's 20 different towns, again with the same population or lower, regarding how they handle insurance, whether they provide a stipend or actually the cost of insurance. So each of them say how many full-time employees that they do. There is a correction. I corrected the one that went out for the public, but the one on the back for the insurance that, I think, I don't know if you say it, Arkin, it says, the population of 1,167, it did say 21 full-time employees. I read their graph wrong, it was actually only four full-time employees. So I do have them for the public. I don't feel like I need to go line by line, because you guys have a copy, plus there's copies for the public, and if anybody's watching and they want a copy, they can contact me, and I would be more than happy to send it to them. So that's just for you guys then to look at for your discretion in your investigations. So then the second thing, Reed and I have talked over the past couple weeks, and I think that he's also addressed the town council. In the past, my first year that I was clerk treasurer, I was able to work with Reed and the board, and there was no animosity or back and forth, but Reed and I both feel like it's come to the point that I need to get my own legal representation for the time being. Not saying it would be forever, but according to Indiana code, I do have, Indiana code or statute, I do have the right to hire my own legal representation. So, I know Reed, I guess, has sent you guys an email, so we had talked about discussing it. I have found an attorney that I plan on hiring. So I don't even know how we need to address this, or how we need to go.
Yes, that's my understanding that this, it's similar to the state statute regarding Michelle hiring staff for her office, as it states that she has the right to do so, but that's subject to town council approvals. And, she would need appropriation to do that, so.
Well, according to the attorney that he says right here that I may hire in contract with a competent attorney, legal research. And then it also says that the board must allocate the funds. So, I mean, the board approves the amount that's allocated to me, but the funds, and then they had said that if the board, and I have the email right here, so they had said that if the board chooses to deny the request because it's my legal right, that they could ultimately enter into litigation for denying my right to have legal representation.
Who's saying that?
The attorney, I have it right here.
Your attorney?
Mhm.
When did you send an email? Was it the one that was like an hour ago?
No, this was when, so the main thing that I stated is in regards to the research that I was doing regarding an elected official and what, my interpretation of that statute. That issue kind of got resolved because it went in the favor of keeping the $500 stipend. So, there was no conflict there. But I was also saying that when I'm researching the law in regards to staffing the office and what authority the town council has versus what authority the clerk treasurer has in regards to hiring and staffing, that my interpretation, and I represent the town council, and so there's kind of natural conflict there that I can't represent both people and advise them on what the law says in that regards. And this is I have another example that there does seem to be a natural tension here regarding this specific issue of the law says clerk treasurer has the right to hire counsel, but then what does that mean? I mean, is that an unlimited amount? Does that mean no, that's zero unless the town council approves it? And I can't represent both of you. I have to tell Michelle, I only represent the town council. in regards, as far as that interpretation. There's only so much that I can do at that point. So this is, I think, the most common area, where it comes up, where the town attorney just can't provide legal representation to both. And I think doesn't mean that I wouldn't be able to advise Michelle on other items.
When I was the town clerk, I asked the attorney several times and he said the same thing, I had to get my own lawyer. I went out and hired and paid for my own lawyer out of my own pocket. And back then, you read some of these laws and it's still up to interpretation of several different people. First of all, you could play it by ear as some case came up, but for us to the board has never, ever just said that clerk can have a lawyer. The clerk's they're supposed to be working together, and I had to buy my own legal representation. Now, maybe rules and laws have changed enough, but I'd like to check into it a little bit, do a little research on it. So, because for a town clerk to have their own lawyer, to me, it's setting the thing right away that you're going to be fighting everything. So, but I don't care if you get a lawyer if you pay for it, but I don't think the town should pay for it. So.
I mean, you can look up state statute, it says that the council must allocate it. There's many towns, because as Reed said, he is not my lawyer, he is the town council, so when it comes to certain things that protect my office or me.
Yeah, you asked, can we have a meeting at 6 o'clock, is that legal? He can advise you on that. You're talking
Right.
about this other stuff where we decide to take something away or whatever.
Right, so he can't, if say you guys are in the wrong by, say you guys only have the right to say what Tammy made, like by hourly, but then I've been told that you guys set what she makes hourly, but I make her hours. So that's where, if I go to Reed and ask him that, he can't advise me, because if he tells me that I legally have the right to do that, then you guys are gonna get mad at him for telling him.
Anybody can talk here, but if I would think as a case comes along, you would ask and bring it up at a meeting, and then we would naturally ask our town lawyer for an answer to that.
I did, I asked him at the last meeting regarding office hours, and he said he wouldn't answer it. Because I said, who makes the utility office hours, and I asked Reed, and he refused to answer it, because it's representing both sides, and that's a conflict of interest.
I thought you said we could have a meeting. What are you talking about this meeting at 6 o'clock?
No, when I asked him, because when we had talked in the office before, you had stated that the utility board makes the utility office hours, that I make the clerk treasurer office hours. So there's was my argument about if you knock Tammy down, or her hours. So I asked Reed, I said, Reed, who makes the utility office hours? And he said he wouldn't answer it, because it's a conflict of interest. So the whole point of me getting, it's not for like how Reed is your everyday 365. It's for me to get my answers or my questions answered so that I know and that the board also knows on both sides. And then if I have a question here and there, it's not like Reed.
Isn't that why you go to the state, Charlie Pride and those guys and
They
ask
can
them
give you a
question?
recommendation, but they say you need to talk to your attorney. Every single time they'll say, well, we won't ding you for this, or we won't ding you for that, but you need to talk to your attorney.
Right, she's already been in this position once, there seems to be, opportunities for this to continue to happen. There seems to be I don't know if you call it political payback or what, but, she's being put in a very awkward spot, and Reed, again, he can't represent both sides in this scenario.
So I was put in that spot a lot of times, and I never went out and had to ask the town to hire me a lawyer and spend thousands of dollars, so you do what you do.
I think the whole
Yeah,
point is that there's,
Right.
Trying to get the town to pay for your lawyer.
Yes, they did, the town paid for your lawyer
What case?
on the toilet case.
on the toilet case.
Didn't I had to hire, I had to spend $2,000. Hire me a
The
lawyer.
But the town paid
The town-
$553, July 2016.
That he had to pay back.
And I had to pay
Yeah,
it back, and I paid it back through donations.
Yeah, we got some former board members that like to talk.
Okay, my bill was $2,000, and maybe the town paid 500 some.
The town,
And it was paid for by other people, by
The town paid the portion that it was legally obligated to pay. That pertains to your clerk treasurer's duties.
And who ended up paying that?
The town
Was
of
it-
Dayton paid it.
Well, who was those volunteers that donated money? And where'd that?
Well, no, the town of Dayton, you know, you can take donations from anybody, but the point is the town of Dayton
But
paid
didn't they
Ron
pay?
Kohler's.
Didn't they pay you
Clerk
back?
treasurer.
Didn't they pay you back though?
I think the whole toilet incident is separate because it didn't have to do with your duties as a clerk treasurer. It was an issue of you being,
Well, yeah,
Like-
that was stupid. That was a stupid.
but the point is it didn't involve your duties. I think the whole point of getting it, because then if I know what I'm legally entitled to in my office and that we are all on the same page, then maybe this helps stop all of the argument and back and forth. If I know what I'm allowed and you guys know what your position is over me, then we can move on. That's the problem, is we can't get to that point because Reed can't.
Do we want to take this under advisement, think about a little bit, a little research or what?
I think we need to appropriate necessary funds for clerk treasurers.
What was the thing that brought around right now, Michelle?
The what?
Like the question?
Regarding the hours being knocked down for the utility clerk, the office hours, who makes that, like, who controls my office at what point and what, because I think I think we're all bumping heads because like how at the last meeting, Ron just called Reed and said, hey, I want you to knock down Tammy's, but I've found numerous documentation and proof to show that that Lena and Alex, and I want to say that Lena is the majority because she was here longer than everybody, that she worked 35 hours a week on a regular basis. So
We had Reed research that, and legally we could do it, so, you know,
Legally do
but
what?
we didn't have any other, we're not telling you what to do in your office and all that stuff.
Well, you
Just
are
try-
because you're taking my employee away and jeopardizing the
You
hours
asked
that I can
for,
work
in the minutes, you
Right.
asked for up to 30 hours. First of all, well, let's not rehash this, we already made a thing, we're researching the hours and all that. It's legal to have a part-time at 29 hours. We all talked about it for 2 meetings and decided that, so, you
The
know.
clarification was on, you hired her as a part-time to help you with, you were only in the office for a year, right? And then you needed help.
That,
You
I'm
asked for
sorry, that
help.
what?
You had the clerk treasurer's office, and then you requested help from the council.
No, I was the utility clerk
You
before I
were
was
the utility
appointed.
clerk, but what I'm getting at, you requested help in that office.
No, I didn't request, it's how the office has always been. It's the position that the town created
Okay,
years ago.
so when that position was there, it was part-time, correct?
Mhm.
And the definition of part-time is 30 hours or less.
It all depends on the point, it all depends on the company. The point is this is going back and forth. I need to know, you guys need to know. Reed can't answer the questions that I'm asking him to protect myself and the position. So the state
Yeah.
statute says that I have every legal right to
The
hire.
statement that I'm trying to say is, we wanted to be assured that it was a part-time position by calling it 29 hours.
Did you guys get the email that I sent you earlier today with a meeting recording from April 25th of 2015? Did anybody receive that email?
I
Did
received
anybody
it.
listen to it?
Yes, I listened to
I
it.
tried.
Can somebody please explain in a summary what I sent you guys?
Well, I think, you know, it was Ron Kohler talking about the clerk treasurer's office at that time. He was the clerk treasurer, and he had a person helping him at that time, and he was defending the fact that utility clerk, you know, was working 36 hours, and that, you know, she was, you know, needed for those 36 hours.
32 to 35.
Well, I think if you
It says
listen to the recording,
35.
it's more than that, so.
So,
So, you know, this was at a time when you know, election was in the air, okay, it was 2015, it was April, okay, so there would have been an election in November of 15, okay, I was not on the board, nobody sitting up here was on the board at that time. So in that meeting, you know, again, Ron was defending the fact that the help in the office was needed for those number of hours, and and, you know, he was defending the pay rate, which is, more than, you know, what the current folks are making, and, you know, there was a 17-minute conversation.
And I was also defending a person that had been there 5 years. I was defending a person on the hours, but at that time, overtime was 35, I think 37 hours. So by letting her work, I didn't set her hours, the board set them. I was just what we were actually asking for, she wanted a week vacation. And I was asking about that week and say she was doing a good job and everything. And I
She get benefits
excuse me.
other.
And I had to step out of that office many times and turn on waters, cut tree limbs, do a lot of other stuff. We did everything. Well, I spent a lot of hours. Okay.
Well, that
Why
doesn't
don't
have
we-
anything to do with the
Why
question
don't we
about.
take all this under advisement and talk about it,
So
okay?
the point being is, right now, Tammy's work, is open to any number of hours?
No, she was hired up to 30 hours.
Okay,
Up to
Correct. That means 30 hours,
Up to 30.
which is 30 hours max. Up to 30 hours means 30 hours max.
Okay,
So-
we're not gonna argue, we've had
Correct,
two
I'm not. I'm
meetings
very
on, we're not
calmly
gonna
talking.
argue on, we're doing our research, we're gonna go out, we've already okayed that ordinance, we just got a second it tonight, and we're gonna go out and do a 1, 2, 3 months of research, and maybe you're right, maybe we're right, who knows? But we have to do our research too. We're getting off on that clerk thing and everything, this is on hiring a lawyer.
Correct,
We
and I'm
either need to,
explaining why.
you guys wanna take it under advisement on hiring this lawyer? Do you wanna allocate so much money? What do you wanna do?
For this instance, it doesn't sound to me like we'd be hiring the lawyer for you.
Yes,
It sounds more like to
For-
defend Tammy's hours.
for my position and my legal right in my office.
But your position, we didn't change anything, right?
You
kept-
guys are ultimately affecting, if you guys decide that you want to try and take her down more, then it ultimately affects the number of hours that I have my office open for the customers or the residents that I've given them evening hours, and I've been praised for opening that up for people. If you guys keep knocking her down, or want to say, well, no, we're not gonna give her 16, we're gonna knock her down to 14 and only let her work 15 hours a week, then that affects how many hours that I can have this office open. So according to everybody that I've talked to, her job description, and if you listen to this 17-minute conversation, Ron states, so this
It
is back
doesn't
in
matter only what Ron
2015.
says 5 years
But he
ago.
said, yes, it does. He
And
says
she
that
was a
30
5-year.
hours.
Okay, why don't we talk about it in
is
5
full-time.
years, when she's a 5-year employee, and then look at it, and we might have this conversation. You're talking about somebody that took a job a year ago with the understanding up to 30 hours. By
Right.
state law, you can give her 29 some weeks, 32 the
And we
others.
wouldn't be having
You
this
can't, you
conversation
just
right
can't do
now
it 30 hours,
if you
so.
would have kept her exactly the way that she
You know.
was.
And it opens it up for a lot of legal stuff, so
You're opening
let us
yourself
do
up for
res-
legal right now, because he says right here in this email, if you guys deny me allocations or appropriations, that we can take it to litigation because it is my legal right, just like it's your legal right
Take
to
it.
have.
I'm just saying, you brought it up tonight, I'm just saying, can we have a little time to think about it?
Reed sent you an email, what, a week ago?
Yeah.
I haven't seen it, so.
Well, you have,
Michelle, do you have a request for the amount of the allocation?
The attorney that I am hiring is $190 an hour. So I'd say I asked them, the board, to allocate $5,000 for a year.
Can we wait
You
until
pay Reed $30,000.
That has nothing to do with it, we never paid anybody else 5,000 in the past, so,
Well-
so do we not pay anything?
Just
What's
because
Reed's
they
pay got to
quit,
do?
because they didn't want to deal with it. I want to stay here for my 4 years and work comfortably in my office, but I feel like I can't because you guys just come in and start bombarding.
'Cause-
right.
yeah,
So
okay,
it's
yeah, right.
literally just for me to find out what legally I have the right to do in my office, what my employee, what I have to say. If they come and sit here and say, yeah, she's your employee, but the utility board or the council sets her pay and her hours, then fine, but I can't get that answer from Reed. I need to be able to get that, or we're gonna keep fighting back and forth. So
But
what's,
we've already talked about the 29 hours. I mean, that's not enough?
Not saying it's not, but if Ron sat here and said that the utility board should make the utility office hours, well, if you have a utility clerk, but you wanted the office open for 35 hours, but you say that she can only work 29, that office is technically, according to Ron, is separate from the clerk.
It's always been, the town sets the hours of the utility office and everything, but they also, if they set the hours, they have to man it or do something. But I never said we wanted to set the hours. All we want to do is take 1 hour away on the 29, and you can still go 3 weeks in a row at 30, and then 1 week less, and 2 more weeks at 30, and 1 week less. You're not gonna lose that hour for the whole year, it's just you can't sustain that all year long, or it's a full-time thing.
Nobody argued about making her full-time at 40. Your argument
We're not talking
was-
about 40, we're talking about the 30 versus 29.
And like I
And
said,
we're
we
not
must be
setting
having
your
this
hours in there, we're not,
conversation. Because when you and
we're
I talked,
rehashing this whole thing now.
well, when you and I talked yesterday, and I said that I was just gonna give you guys what I did, you guys can do your thing, and you said, well, I'm glad that you're doing the work, yada, 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 and if the council decides to look into it.
I did not, I said we need 2 or 3 months to look into
That
it.
took
Just
me a
like
week.
you said in there, you're not gonna run for clerk in 4 years
I'm
still.
not, because
You
I'm
know?
not going, this
You know,
is
but I never-
ridiculous.
Michelle, I said over and over, we need to do, I was trying to tell you, we need to do our research. We're not gonna
Correct.
believe your research completely, we're gonna
No.
do our own.
I
You
agree.
just said, I said we didn't need to do any research.
No,
you
you said
know?
if we decide.
I did not say if we,
Anyways, the point,
Is there-
I'm not
Let's
arguing,
stop it.
I'm not arguing.
I'm
Measuring-
just trying to clarify that 29 hours was an acceptance by the council at the last meeting
Mhm.
as part-time, as the job was advertised, if you want to call it.
Correct.
I don't know why there can't be anything worked out to make that, why won't it work? That's the thing. I mean,
You and I talked before the meeting last Wednesday, and I told you that I was gonna keep my big mouth shut, that I had nothing to argue about until Reed sent that email through saying you guys downed her thing. The second you start downing it 1 hour, you're gonna start downing it more.
We won't.
no.
we're
You
not,
guys have
Michelle.
already
No,
said
no,
her
no, no.
salaries,
We've already
but
told
you
you
are
we're not.
touching her salary by knocking her down. Yes, you gave her the dollar raise
No,
early,
I
that's for 2
re-clarified
months.
what the title, what part-time versus full-time. That's why it's 29 hours.
Everywhere is different.
Well,
Some places are
Everywhere
29, some are
is
30,
different, that
some
is
are...
correct.
Okay, but Lena was 35 and considered part-time.
Okay, like when I worked for the state of Indiana, when I was over at Ivy Tech, that was a part-time position. It varied, but I could never exceed 28 hours. That was the parameters on it.
Probably
So
'cause they had
whoever wanted
50
me, in
more
whatever
people.
department,
Correct.
you
'Cause they had
know,
50.
that's how it was, and it was defined as
Correct.
to keep it part-time.
Because
So-
they knew if you go over 30, because they had at least 50
Right.
full-time employees. We do not have that.
Okay,
But with the new IRS parameters for what they're determining as full-time nowadays, that's 30 hours.
It was in 15 and, still worked
Yes.
35 and it wasn't an issue.
Okay,
It was- it
so that was the reason
when I
for
checked,
taking
it
the
was
1 hour
30.
off. That means she could work her little heart out for 29 hours. And getting the hourly pay, to me, it's a sweet deal.
Well, the issue is, one, her job description shows that she is my second in command. And that was Ron's argument in this meeting, is that the council wanted 2 people in there for all of these hours because he said, if Lena dies tomorrow or he dies tomorrow, the council wants somebody in there that can do the office, and that they wanted the people in there. So I'm going off exactly, Ron and I had the same exact input in 15 with Lena as I do now.
Okay,
But
can
I've
we-
not
can
actually
we-
sat here and
Okay,
said,
listen now, we've discussed this 2 times, and all we wanna do is, we wanna do our own research. You're doing
And I'm not
yours and you
stopping
can
you
do
from doing
more, let's get back to this issue on the lawyer. On the lawyer, that's what we're talking about.
Is there a reason we can't, sorry, is there a reason we can't wait until, we're not going to, but if if the day ever came and somebody tried saying, let's only let Tammy work 12 hours,
It's not
Can-
just her position. I'm being undermined in my position. I've talked to Reed about this a couple different times, but now it's gotten to the point. So we've had discussions on what he can and can't answer.
Michelle, we
So
there's-
haven't asked one other.
You guys are looking at spending the town's money, people's money on litigation over an hour. Just leave it at 30, leave it alone when it was, up to 30 hours.
We're talking about somebody sticking it to the town too for just an hour and could stop that litigation, Mike. You know, because of the new rules and the government rules, what it causes and what it leads into.
You spent more on Lena than what we're spending on Tammy. And I didn't even ask for you to put her at
Lena was
35
here, I
hours at
told you,
point.
when it comes 5 years, Lena was here 5 years, and I also in that tape offered to pay her increase out of my salary, remember? That's on that tape?
Do you want me to throw that
You
offer on
know?
the table? I would be more than happy to.
For what?
I would be more than happy to throw an agreement on the table for Tammy.
$30,000 on the lady to do the reconciliation, she
Yeah.
couldn't do it.
Yeah, you see, yeah, right, Mike.
So what
Yeah,
else?
right.
So you're
Okay,
saying
let's-
there's been a lot that Reed can't answer?
Reed, haven't we been talking to this after elections? I had concerns, and you said it was speculation. Well, now my speculation has happened, and I've come to you regarding the hours, her pay, cutting the time, what I can and can't do with her, who controls her.
So the main area has to do with the budget and how you guys appropriate money. Okay, so that is partly a financial analysis, has a lot to do with State Board of Accounts and, clerk, but then interpreting the law. So, yeah, it's these theoreticals, and it's all has to do with who has the authority between the two offices, and how does that work with appropriations. And so, that is where I can't represent or advise Michelle, but that's the best that I can do to explain it to you. Other than that, it's just if there's a dispute, or potential litigation, but, the only thing that I'm hearing as potential litigation is, if you said no appropriations, then she could file a lawsuit to enforce you to do appropriations.
As the law states.
So,
I think it would be helpful for me, for her to have an attorney. The law is what it is. It's not like one side's gonna gain anything by, having.
Could we do a little research and okay this at the next meeting?
Yeah.
We're not gonna change anything in the next 30 days, so that's all, and Sue wanted to talk to her.
Yeah, Michelle, could you come up here for an hour or two a day and help out?
I'm up here 5 days a week, I open.
No, you're not.
How much you wanna bet me I am? I've got cameras everywhere. Don't tell me that I don't do, because I document every single hour that I'm here. Plus, I legally don't have to step into this building. I have a
Yeah,
laptop
that's it.
that
Throw it
has
all
my
out.
whole
You don't
thing.
legally have
So
to do anything.
just because you're watching Cindy's cameras doesn't mean you watch me up here. So do not call me out. I live and breathe this job.
You
Thank you.
have 30,000 of my money
No.
to spend.
Yes,
so
I
what the
can.
hell?
I have
It's a government
Keystone.
job.
Exactly. I do not, I've talked to
Yeah, but
many
you have-
treasurers
I paid
who
for
never
it.
stepped foot in the
Michelle,
building.
But you don't have
Right?
to answer.
No, I'm
those.
not gonna
Yeah.
answer.
So how much
You
was it,
took me 30,000
$190?
every year.
Yes. It's cheaper than rate.
Okay, guys, let's take it under advisement for next month. We'll talk about it. We'll try to have it, do a little research with the state, with Reed, with everybody.
Have you
Okay.
done the research?
The state laws, I don't know what needs to be.
Could we have 30 days to look it over? I don't really want to just okay it in 2 minutes after it's brought up, like you guys did.
It was brought up a week ago and he emailed you.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't seen, it says town attorney. I had no idea what you're asking for, Michelle. I don't know this email you're talking about. There's tons of emails on there. You know?
I do remember that email, but I don't remember it being about.
There's a group of 3 emails that the town council received, and based on conversation from last meeting, you all probably read all 3 of those.
And did it ask about a separate attorney in there and asking for appropriations and stuff?
It
or-
pointed out that the clerk treasurer is entitled to a.
Did it
pointed
ask,
out that
did
Reed
it ask
cannot-
that she was gonna ask for a
Reed cannot-
separate attorney? Or
Reed
did it,
cannot
was it just
represent both of them.
ICC and all these rules?
It pointed out that Reed cannot.
No, I didn't do an analysis of that statute. you know, what I said is, in regards to this research that I am doing, which had to do with elected official
Yeah.
salary ordinance and with the utility clerk, I said that, you know, I have a conflict with this specific issue, that I can't represent both of you, and, you know, that's what I need to notify you of, and said, you know, it might be at the point where Michelle needs an attorney. That's all that I
Yeah,
said.
but
I didn't
that's right.
research the question, the next question, which is, well, what obligation do you have? You know, what does this law mean? Like, I haven't gotten into that, because we have so much other research that we were dealing with, and that we were
So
dealing
this-
with other issues.
So this is new tonight, asking about it, and so let's.
It's also in our
research it.
town ordinance book, just for the record.
Let's research it.
Excuse me.
You guys wanna allocate money or something? What do you guys want?
It certainly doesn't say in the state law or the ordinance how much you would allocate.
Correct.
You know, so, that is an issue that, you know, I think
Well, I'd like to have 30 days,
This is the
till
second
this
for the
meeting,
town.
to look into it, I guess, okay?
I think it is in our ordinance and state law, and I think you need to allocate money
Well, I think we need to think of that.
if they're going
You guys
to
decide.
continue our tax.
The cost of the allocation is something
I
that
got a question here. I'm hard of hearing, and I got somebody down here behind me that's sitting there going like this all the time, and I can't hear. I can't hear. Well, you know what? Maybe you ought to keep your mouth shut.
Boy, I have a right to an opinion.
Well, yeah, but get up here and talk. Don't sit there and talk.
Okay, guys, okay.
Don't sit there and do that.
Hey, Gordon, let's all.
Well, I can't hear when she's sitting there, she goes like this all
It'd
the
be nice
time.
if everybody could get up and talk at the.
we have
Natalie?
another,
No, I've changed sides.
we have another person.
I'm saying maybe it's quieter on this side, I don't know.
It's not, it's in my ear.
Yes, I am.
Sorry I'm late to the show, it's hard getting out of the house today, so I'm just kind of here for a minute because it was requested and I said I would do it and I'm getting tired, so I need to head home. But I don't know how many of the council is online or anything, but since it was an open letter and not much of the town comes to these, I figured online was an appropriate place to post an open letter, since we also don't have a official town newsletter that everyone receives. But I wrote a town letter to the town council that I wanted to read tonight and then submit. I think I put online that I was going to submit it. And then I also brought in the website for the setting up like a town parks and rec and things for the town, so I can submit that as well to be put in. It's the whole code, so it's got the website on there. Anyway, I wanted to read the letter to the town to the council because I didn't know how many were online. So I put, regarding the budget decision and the employee compensation meeting, I can't remember the date right now.
Do you want me to read that for you, Natalie, so you can sit?
Oh, it's okay. I'd like to. The only compensation that was being questioned was Tammy's insurance stipend that I could hear. The council wanted to mentioned reducing it to $350 a month instead of $500 a month, if I'm not mistaken. That's a difference of $150 a month. That's only $1,800 a year, not $27,000 like many people are posting. After researching 23 cities and towns with an equivalent population to Dayton's, both Tammy and Michelle make less than all of them by a pretty good margin in some cases, and a significant difference in about half of that list that I found. And I was surprised at that because hearing the salaries and hearing the raise go up, I had personally applied to both positions, so I was aware of what was being asked. At first I was balking when they were asking for an insurance stipend at all for Tammy, sorry Tammy, but I'm not used to part-timers not being offered anything in the way of insurance. I, however, have since found that many jobs are actually offering it now, at least a stipend or insurance for the employee only, if not their family, so I decided to research more. This past few weeks, since it was first brought up with the previous council to offer the stipend, I started looking for town salaries across our state. Both these wonderful employees make less, in some cases a lot less, than most of the towns across the state, and I can't figure out why, and I can't answer that. I believe our previous council was fiscally responsible in the case of salaries, maybe to our employees' detriment. So this new council would not only be considered financially responsible, they would be considered miserly if it changed. There are other ways to balance a budget than to cut your employees' hands off. Rather, I believe this new council should be looking at ways to bring money into the town, not cutting corners, saving money. You will have disgruntled employees doing 60 hours of work in a 30-hour work week, getting paid a pittance and feeling like they are undervalued and underappreciated. And this leaves you with employees that will leave you in a heartbeat, which leaves you open to employees who come in who don't know what they're doing and don't care because they know they aren't getting paid to do the work you're asking them to do. I have had one of these jobs, several in fact, and they suck your life away. If you appreciate your employees and pay them what they're worth and treat them like people who need to take care of their lives outside their jobs, they work harder for you and stay longer. It is a known fact. And please consider this. This is advice to our new council members. We are getting away with a bargain on these ladies, truly. Please act like it. They are doing a town favor by not demanding raises to the levels I have seen. Some of them have received $2 an hour raise within a year of starting. The next year they received another $3 an hour raise. They are doing the budget a favor too by asking Reed to look into everything that you could easily do in your free time. You're spending townspeople's money in our budget on this nonsense, and I am sure Reed is fine getting paid a little more for his time. I would be in his position. But I'm sure he has other clients too and has better things to do than to look into inane questions that an hour-long Google search can do for you, like it did for me. And the mental eye rolling can stop about the hypocrisy about fiscal responsibility. Tammy's compensation was already signed off on, and it can't be changed without legal ramifications against the town until next year, and it can't be lowered. That is the law. It simply is. And our two long-standing councilmen should already know this. One did and stated that, but was disregarded and literally interrupted and talked over when he tried to say as much. I am sorry that the previous council got it approved under the wire before you stepped into office. And yes, it was probably purposeful, but that's politics in the most basic and often of cases. Most political terms end like this, and you can't be mad or wag your finger or stamp your feet and shake your fists. It won't change anything. I guarantee you will do the same at the end of your 4 years or terms as elections come up. And I do hope that your 4 years, though, you choose to come through with ideas that will bring money to the coffers. Apply to bring a library or Parks and Rec department or even a town museum officially to Dayton and make our town a place people want to congregate and gather together as a community to feel like they belong. Offer the town ways where neighbors can meet their neighbors and be friends and mingle rather than fight and scream across the town hall until meetings have to be called to an end. I beg you to do this as a member of this town. I'm tired of the ugliness and bitterness, and I offered up my art to paint a mural in this town because I love it here, and I applied for a grant to do it. But with or without a grant, I want to put my art in this town of ours, and I want it to reflect the beauty of it, not just the hope of what this beauty could be. Signed, yours, Natalie Steele. I live at 749 Walnut Street, and while I haven't been here as long as a lot of you, I plan on staying here, watching my kids grow up and even move out and come and visit when they have the families of their own. We like our house, we like it here, we like living close enough to a city without being part of it. There are many ways to bring money into the town, whether it's in our town's management budget or in entertainment budgets, but arguing how to save costs doesn't bring any money, new money into the town, and that's what this town needs. We don't have a lot of town-hosted events. I've actually recently found out we can apply to have a town manager or even a mayor, and we don't because it technically saves us money not paying people like that. But these girls are doing a great job, and I've actually flipped sides on it. When I applied against Michelle for her job, I didn't understand how my qualifications didn't get it. I didn't understand how just taking checks and entering could be just that part of her job, and now knowing the day-to-day that town utility clerks and town clerks and everyone goes through, she's doing 60-hour work week in the 30 hours that she gets paid her salary for. It's a lot of hard work. I tried emailing this letter to the town council, but even the website hasn't had time to get updated. We still have our old council posted on the website. So there's an offer as well to update the website, because we don't have our minute meetings on there. We don't have any updated information at all for almost a year. And it gets hard for the town to even communicate with you when they don't come here. I just heard last meeting that everyone was applying to get their emails set up and go through, and I still haven't been able to find where to find those. They're not even listed on the government site that lists every elected official.
I don't know,
Mine?
has anybody actually got theirs?
Isn't mine on there?
No,
It's not. I thought all of those.
Mike's and Tyrone's are on there. That's the last that I have found.
Mine should always have
No, Mark Jones set it up, but we're waiting for that, and then I need to
been. Well,
get
what
there.
happened? It used to be on there, because we'd advertise.
That might have
On the town page, you guys have the old council information, but on the government site, there's nobody's information on there at all. You guys ran for election, and I thought this information was put in on there, and even Indiana State hasn't put this information on, so I don't know if it's because they don't have it or anything, but if they don't have it, there's no way I could email this to
I'll follow up Mark
so.
Jones and have him do it
But yeah, it's an offer to update the website. It's sadly in need of it, except for the utility payment that we just had. But the Indiana code is on there as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ally.
Okay. Guys, what are we gonna do about the lawyer here? You wanna take it under advisement? You not want to? We're taking it under advisement. I make a motion, take this lawyer thing under advisement for a month, see what we need to do, and make a decision next month, whether to give Michelle a lawyer or not a lawyer. You have a second?
I second.
Have a motion on the table and a second. All in favor of waiting a month with the motion, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no.
No.
You get those, Michelle?
I'll let them know.
Town attorney. Is that where we're at? So
No, reports of council members.
we haven't had the town attorney yet.
Oh, sorry, I put that on the wrong page.
So, last time we passed ordinance 2020-1 to amend the salary ordinance. That has been enacted and has been signed, it's valid law. The law is pretty clear that this, any technical step or procedural step that is not completed by a legislative body does not automatically undo the passage of the law. But there could be an argument that someone has grounds to make standing as a claimant and say that their due process rights have been violated. So really, it is a fairly high standard, but we should have, because we passed it on first reading, we should have had a motion to suspend the rules to allow it to be heard on first reading instead of second reading. So if nothing is done tonight, salary ordinance is still in effect as far as I'm concerned, unless someone takes legal action against the town. That's how we're going to operate going forward. you know, we're gonna do the best that we can to follow the Indiana open door law. We're gonna do the best we can to follow everything that we can, but we're gonna act like everyone else does, and that is, you know, if we pass an ordinance, that's adopted. And if someone challenges it, then we'll deal with it at that time. But I would recommend that we go ahead and fix this one, because this one can be fixed. The only way to fix it, though, is to actually adopt another ordinance. So I prepared ordinance 2020-2, and all we would need to do is have a motion to suspend the rules to adopt on first reading tonight. I would probably add in, we need another motion to suspend the requirement to have this ordinance in the agenda, since we didn't have it in the agenda, just to make sure that we get that on the record. But that would be my recommendation.
Question: if you do not have a unanimous vote, my understanding is you cannot suspend the rules and have a second reading.
Right. So we already have a valid ordinance, okay? So if you don't get a vote passed tonight to unanimously suspend the rules and to do it on first reading, and someone wants to not honor the tradition of the town council, because it's generally jurisdiction to jurisdiction whether you're allowed to do things on first reading or not. A lot of times, a lot of other places don't. But, you know, it's my understanding that everything has been allowed to do on first reading, but if anyone did not want to tonight, then we would have to wait until February, and we would have to do that on second reading. But you are correct.
If everybody is in agreement suspending the rules and it passing or being read the second time, that is traditional of the town board. But if it's not a unanimous vote, then normally it does move to a future meeting.
Correct.
Has been the tradition of Dayton.
That's what the law says. What I'm saying is whether or not the town council votes to allow for something to be adopted on first reading is something that is, at least in,
Right.
you know, the last year, 2019, that's something that has been done as a matter of practice, and
That's correct.
some places that's just not done. That, you know, it's always been done a different way. But it's completely up to the town council.
You and I agree on that.
So do you need to read it first, or do we need to go?
We don't need a formal reading.
Okay.
So we're suspending the rules regarding a formal reading. We're suspending the rules so that we can pass it on first reading.
You need that motion?
Correct.
Okay, make a motion to suspend the rules,
To waive the formal reading
to
of the
waive the
ordinance,
formal reading.
and then a motion to suspend the rules to allow adoption on the first reading.
Okay, is that two different motions?
Correct.
So did I say the first motion
Yes.
complete? Yeah.
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor and a second to suspend the rules and accept this. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. It's passed.
The motion should include the amendment number, correct?
Okay,
Do we need to do
you want to do it right?
No?
Okay, make a motion to suspend the rules for the
Formal
amendment.
reading of
For the
ordinance
formal reading
2020-2.
For 2020-2.
Correct.
Need a second? Okay, got a motion on the floor and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no.
No?
4 to 1 and pass. So what's the next motion?
So we can't do it. Right.
I guess he voted no.
Well, that was for formal reading. I guess we could read it all. Is that what you're saying?
What was the motion, for formal reading or to pass the ordinance?
Suspend the rules for, to waive the formal reading.
Okay, I'll change my vote to yes.
Okay. So now we need to move on to the second motion. We need a motion to suspend the rules to allow for ordinance 2020-2 to be adopted on first reading.
Make a motion to suspend the rules to allow ordinance 2020-2 to be adopted on the first reading. Need a second.
A second.
Got a motion on the floor and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say no. Okay, now.
All right, so now we need just a vote
For
to
the
approve ordinance 2020-2.
Okay, need it. I make a motion to approve ordinance 2020-2. Amended salary ordinance.
A second?
Got a second. Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no.
No.
There we go. Okay, and then you're going to talk about the resolution for the area plan?
So can you fill this in for Ron and Stan?
Or wait, no, that was Jen. Next one. To approve it. Right.
Motion to adopt on first reading is the one that
Okay, so that's
the
what
one
it
that Ron is needing. Yeah. So we have resolution, this will be 2020-1. The resolution that you are being asked to sign tonight is to authorize the Dayton Redevelopment Commission to take the next step so that they can proceed with a public hearing. So in December, the declaratory resolution that was passed by the Dayton Redevelopment Commission went in front of the Area Plan Commission, and the sole question in front of the Area Plan at that time was whether the declaratory resolution that has been presented follows the Tippecanoe County Area Planning Commission's plan and the economic development plan. Okay, so they have reviewed it and said that it is compliant, and then it comes back to you for that same question regarding whether the proposal meets the requirements of the area plan, purview, and the economic development plan. That's all that's being asked to approve tonight. If the Dayton Town Council has any amendments that they would like to see to the contents of the declaratory resolution, which would mostly be the area that we're looking at. You know, this all involves the TIF district. The declaratory resolution includes a map that shows where the allocation area is. You know, that you can't do anything with that tonight. The next step is for the Dayton Redevelopment Commission to schedule a public hearing, and then after they go through that process, they need to do a confirmatory resolution. So if the Dayton Town Council wanted any changes, they would need to communicate that to the Dayton Redevelopment Commission, because there can still be changes to that declaratory resolution regarding what's in the contents of that. So happy to answer any other questions regarding this, but really this is not the time to get into the changes that you might have. I'm really just here, and there'll be our advisors at Baker Tilly will be available at the next meeting, the public hearing process, to answer your questions and also to answer questions of the public regarding the tax part of this and what this means for the town going forward. But I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have regarding what you're doing tonight.
Resolution 2020-01.
Right.
No, it will be number 3. 'Cause we don't-
Resolution?
Well, we go in order.
You do.
It doesn't matter whether it's an ordinance or resolution. So it will be
2020-3.
3.
You don't do the resolution separate?
Nope. per the lawsuit agreement, so that's how we just started doing it.
So does anybody got any comments or questions?
I'll make a motion, we adopt resolution 2020-3.
Second.
Why don't we, just to be safe, do a motion to adopt this on first reading tonight, to suspend the rules to allow, to waive formal reading of resolution 2023
Make a motion that we suspend the rules
for formal reading.
for formal reading of 2020-3, resolution 2020-3.
Second. Okay, got a motion on the floor. For whatever Ashley said on this amendment, and it was seconded, properly seconded. All in favor say yes, or aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. Now we
Need a second motion. This will be a motion to adopt
First
resolution 2020-3 on first reading.
Make a motion, we adopt resolution 2020-3 on first reading.
Second.
Thank you.
got a motion of what Ashley just said, properly seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. That passes 5-1, 5-0.
Okay, so now we just need a vote to approve the resolution.
I'd make a motion that we approve resolution 2020-3.
Second.
Got a motion to approve 2020-3, and have a second, properly second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say no. Motion carried. Anything else, Reed?
No.
Reports of council members.
Do you want me to send this to
Al,
them?
you want to start?
No report.
Do you mark that?
Jen?
Yeah.
I don't have a report, but, I was gonna volunteer or ask if I could help, with the website. I know Natalie just said the same thing. Is that something you do now? Can we talk about that now?
Yeah.
We can talk about it.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'd love to help. I know you're busy, so.
Stan?
I have a question on all these legal bills that we've got for Baker Farms. When are we gonna bill the developer?
The stuff that is BF&S, they pay that site review fee when they first started. So what we'll do is we'll go through and add up everything that we've paid BF&S, and then we will bill them. That is the difference of what they've already paid. The whole agreement of them paying for other things, that's regarding, I believe, Yasmin. The the BF&S thing is
No. So BF&S,
correct.
for their review for everything that Michelle Watts is doing is separate. The agreement is regarding BF&S right-of-way contract. So we signed a separate agreement.
Right, so the
For
site
major
review
roads.
stuff is like their normal typical stuff that they would pay anyways.
Yeah, we don't get
Separate.
reimbursed for that, so we do get reimbursed for everything that Ron Francis was engaged to do through BF&S.
No, we do. Ron and I talked about this yesterday.
That's what I just said.
Right,
We do get reimbursed.
not separate from the agreement, the site review stuff, we do get reimbursed. And that's separate from what Malacus agreed to pay on for the other stuff, for the right-of-way stuff. So every business pays a site review fee. So say they paid $5,000, we go back through all of the stuff that BFNS has done. Then if it's over the $5,000, then we say, hey, on these dates, we pay these invoices minus what the $5,000 you've paid, you now owe us this. That's how it's always been with it, like Dollar General, them, TDS,
Yeah,
all
I'm
of that.
agreeing with you that,
Right,
yes,
that's what I'm trying to clarify.
but
That's separate.
that only has to do with Michelle Watts's invoices, not with the work that Ron Francis is doing on condemnation.
Correct,
That's what I'm
correct.
saying.
Yeah. So it's the same business, but there are certain invoices that are separated from the site review. That's what I'm saying.
You guys get together.
Okay.
Just decide which is which, and
Yeah,
Because some of them are gonna be on the border, and some we cover, and some they cover.
right, yeah, and that's what we discussed yesterday.
Ashley, you
So,
were saying you had.
I mean, how soon is this gonna happen? We're gonna drag this down payments out, or?
No, it will probably, because I was working on it when Ron came in and talked to me yesterday, so we should have a total of what they owe us by the end of next week. That is simply from like site review stuff. Ron and I had discussed that the board needs to discuss how they want to address the separate money that they owe, how that's gonna be brought about or decided, or when that's gonna get paid.
Well, we haven't scheduled the closing with Ron Francis, and so the church hasn't signed those documents, and the church hasn't signed the easement documents. So we need to get those done before we can close that
Yeah,
out.
because they had the old board members on it, different stuff like that, right? They had to change the little bit. Oh, we have to.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Ron Francis and BFNS will probably invoice us for all their work because their engagement is in November.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that Yasmin's law firm is done, but it keeps sending me like status emails, but I hope that they're not billing for them. I've been trying.
You just got
And
something.
that, yeah, we'll have to talk about that, because I did just get, did I tell you it was like 3,000 something? I wanna say it's like 3,800 that we just got for December's work that they've done. So I think we've gotten an invoice for October, November, and December. I wanna say October's was like maybe 900 and something. November's I think was 3,000 something, and then this one, and then the one that we just got was like 3,800.
Yeah, I communicated an email to them at the end of December that we did not need anything further from them because of where we were. But that's only for them. Ron Francis, is still coming to meet with the church, I believe, at some point, so they can sign on those documents.
Yeah. Good. Ashley, or Stan, you got anything? Ashley?
Oh,
Oh, yeah. Mark, you finally got it. Why don't you come up, Mark, and talk?
Marshall Taylor, too.
Yeah. Well, we haven't got that. We're still, well, wait, let me finish. It's still reports of council.
I do have a couple things. Working on drinking fountain, they were out, they worked on it, still don't work, so I'll follow up on that. And then, back concrete, we've got a guy coming out, he's gonna look at it as far as, making the lip go away.
Can I make a suggestion on that water fountain?
Yes.
Instead of just repairing that one, why don't you guys get one that's regular water fountain that has the bottled water? Because, the ladies up here and Mark, and everybody has to use that, by bottled water and have it drink out that way, because they're like the same price now. It just makes sense, and then if people come up here, you can just bring your own cup and.
I agree. I had that repaired 3 times, and you can never get it fixed. Nate and different people, I think,
About 25 years.
rip it off the wall and replace it.
It's not worth putting any more money in.
But you could look into it.
The new ones with the bottle fill and stuff like that, I'll send you a couple snapshots of the one that he likes, and looked it up on Amazon or whatever, you can buy them locally, but, they're about $3 grand or so. I don't know what it costs to install, but, if the council would like to go that direction, then we can go that direction.
You get some
I say
prices.
buy a new one.
Buy something new, that thing's been repaired 3 or 4 times. And you just did it, so.
Well, it was working when they left, and I come in today and it's not, so. Put a valve on
I
it.
know,
some
that's-
things,
That was the deal when I was at Purdue, all the old ones, they come in and change them out because they had lead solder in them.
Well, I think this is probably after that, but yeah.
They weren't that old, they still had lead solder.
We'll get a new one for him
Is there anything else to ask?
next time. That's all.
A couple things. MBAH, I think I emailed everybody. MBAH sent this letter that I wouldn't mind reading, so everybody out here knows it. It's coming up for renewal on March the 1st on our insurance. And in the past, for a while there, we went out every couple of years and got 2 or 3 estimates, so.
Well, bottom line, you're wanting to get bids for.
Well, I want to read the letter. okay, because it's important what's in it. This is to the town council board and Ron. I wanted to touch base with you. This is by Brent Skelton. He's the guy that's part owner of MBAH, and Drew, he bid on our last, when I was clerk, bid and outbid a couple people each time on getting the insurance. I wanted to touch base with you and the town board to inquire about getting the town's insurance back. As you may or may not recall, MBAH insured the town for several years. To my knowledge, there was never any issues with our service. In fact, over the last few years we insured the town, I was able to bring a new market to you that saved the town roughly 25% on the annual insurance. I'm not aware if you are still with Selective Insurance or not. This is still probably the best market out there and the market we would want to use for your insurance. Selective is the market that I originally brought to you and created the insurance plan for the town with them when we were able to pass along that huge savings. In February of 2017, my work and insurance program I had created for the town was handed over to Henriot Agency via an agent of record letter. Simply put, I was fired and my work was given to another agency. They never had to earn the business or prove anything. I made several attempts to speak with Lena regarding the reasons why this occurred. However, my messages were not returned and I was never given an answer. I would love the opportunity to earn your business back, and or take back from the Henriot Agency my original work using Selective Insurance. Please let me know what MBH and I can do to earn your business back. I look forward to hearing from you and the board on this matter. Thank you. Have a happy new year, Brent Skelton. So it's coming up, I think, March the 1st, the renewal. We haven't put it out for bid in years. We used to do it. The old board wanted it rebid. I certainly think we ought to take some of these things and rebid them each couple of years with 2 or 3 vendors. So would you guys like to get for our whole town, this is, you know, it's a new, you put it out in January and February, and then the insurance companies bid it, and then we take it under advisement and look at it.
I would seek 3 bids.
Yes.
The problem that you do have with that, because I had talked to Bob, is that when you're bidding insurance, it's not like bidding a road. So when Bob said when he took over the town, there was a lot of things missing and not set up. We didn't have the workman's comp insurance, which saved us $108,000 due to our injured officer. So those are the things, like, there's a lot of things that a town needs to be insured on, and there was things missing. So how can you get an accurate bid if you're missing certain aspects?
What you do is when I bid it out, just like your roads and streets, whatever, you have one company write up the specs. You use them, get a company that'll do that, and you send it out with 3 or 4. I think Ashley does that. And so I always had it written up, and then we put it out for bid, several of them, and they all bid, just like our leaf contract, our garbage contract, everything, they bid on the same package. Then it's up to them, when MBH had taken over, they had really tweaked the old one and made a tremendous amount of changes too. You know, all insurance companies like to find loopholes and make changes so they look better, I think. You know, they found something, you're taking over your insurance. So anyway, we would have the package drawn up. We wouldn't just hand it, you'd hand it without a price. You always do, like leaf removal or anything, and get 2, 3, 4 bids, whatever you want to. So
How do you get it without a price, though, if it's a bid?
they bid on it without, I always blanked out everything, nobody could tell it was 14,000 or 30, just like our leaf contract or our garbage. You don't tell, well, they know because they're sitting in the audience and read it, see what the others did the year before. But usually you just put, like on roads, Ashley, don't you?
You have to have the price when doing a bid like that, because you have to go with the lowest bid unless you can justify
No,
why
they
you're
put
going.
in the price, but when you put out the bid sheet, it doesn't have a price on it.
The spec sheet.
The spec sheet. Yeah, when you get the bids in, they gotta give you a price, I mean,
Right.
so you can decide. But-
Whoever writes it up will have a price on it, and then you
You just have to be careful with insurance, because, yes, like you said, they'll make loops or cut corners, but it doesn't mean, just because it might be saving you money, But if somebody gets hurt or there's something, you might not have the coverage that
I
the
would,
town would
I
have.
would think we'd bid it out. I used to bid it out to several of the top people in Lafayette. MBH, Henriot, all of them are big insurance companies. They aren't a little mom and pop operation. They handle all, MBH, Henriot, all handles a lot of towns, cities, whatever, part of Lafayette and all that. Remember when MBH took over, they did 5 claims in 4 years, I think. Boom, 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 the damages and everything. And then we basically just took, you gotta get approval from the board and from your town here to hand all that company's packet. It'd be like Kohler Brothers drawing a landscape plan for you, Stan, and then you go to Bennett's and have them do it. That's what we did up here, but you gotta sign that release to do that. And that's a very unfair thing. We shouldn't have done that. We should have at least made Henriot bid the thing out, just like everybody else had to. But anyway, it's up to now. They handled it for 4 years.
Well, didn't you say in 17?
They did it.
Didn't you say that they changed over in 17? That's what their letter says?
No, in February of 17, I thought it was actually
So,
earlier.
going on 3
It was a
years.
year, 3 years, yeah. And I remember the agent calling me up and say, Ron, can you please, I can't get through the office, they don't return the calls. I think he called 15 or 18 times.
And
Never
how
did.
long were they the insurance company before Lena changed them?
I don't know, you could look it up, 3 or 4 or 5 years. 1 year, Ron hit John Swick's truck, and that was $5,000. Second year, Ron hit John Swick's van, that was $5,000. Third year, Ron Merkel hit the police station, that was $8,000. The fourth year, the wind took off the roof of the implement barn, and that was $14,000 or $24,000. We hadn't had a claim in years and years and years and the reason we went and put it out for bid, because the old insurance company, the guy was getting real elderly and they really weren't communicating a lot and everything, but it didn't matter, the board wanted to put out for a bid and we did that. And then
I would just take consideration because Tammy and I have already been rebonded for the whole year through them.
you just-
So we've
yeah,
already-
you're still-
We've already paid
yeah,
for
yeah,
that.
that's a couple $100 and you're still, that gets transferred, like when we did it before, it gets transferred over or something, they do something.
No,
first.
well, no, they kept it until it was canceled.
All right, but
Yeah.
that's a minute thing. We're talking about a $3 million umbrella package here, $2 million, plus all our buildings, all our trucks, all our everything. MBH is one of the biggest companies, if not the biggest in Lafayette. So they're not gonna just throw something out the window. Yeah.
In regards to the spec sheet, is that something Dayton has, that we put that out to these insurance companies and let them fill in the blanks?
I don't know, I know that Mark and I think maybe Scott might have had to meet with Bob, not maybe 6 months ago, because there was so many things that had transferred over that MBH or whatever it is, didn't have updated, that was wrong, and that's why I think some of our stuff went up, because it was underdone, or there was buildings on there, or things that were on there that weren't supposed to be on there anymore.
Well,
So,
with the onset of annexations, other projects that are gonna be coming along, wondering how we can address all that in time.
I don't know if there's much to insure with, property being annexed in and stuff like that. Till such time we get roads or whatever, or street signs, or it's just, who's financing insurance?
Jen is
Finance.
Finance, she's fine, there's no insurance. I used to get the bids and everything, the town board had me get them, because I knew something about insurance, I guess, too, and everything, but I'd like to see, if Henriotte's had that for 2 or 3 years, and just last year they told you these changes, then why didn't they make those changes in the very first month? That would I'd be concerned about.
it was some kind of report that they were doing.
Yeah,
and
I
we
know,
always
but I'd
said-
like to get exactly what it is, and remember that was taken away from me and everything. I'd like to get what reports say what it is, and have them, the other people, it doesn't matter, they ought to tell us why they didn't cover it, but we still just put a package out. We put the existing package, if you feel that's the best, you put it out and have them bid on it.
And I think it's up to us to look at their bids and see if they've got everything covered or not, just because they're Lowe's. If they don't have everything covered, then you don't go with it. We got to dissect it and see if it's right or not for us.
In every
But you also gotta be
insurance,
careful, because you guys don't know everything in the town that is covered. So just like I had to have Mark sit down on certain things.
with Michelle, I used to do that. I used to do the
Right.
buildings, the trucks, and all that, sit down with them, because our business is sort of about the same size. and
So it was
everything,
the clerk
insurance,
that did it.
You know, but and anybody that wanted to be involved.
Correct.
But the thing is, every insurance has a different belief on how they insure things and to what extent. Some want to insure 90% of the 90% co-insurance of the real value. Others don't want to do it. They want to do it 85%. Some want 100%. It's just up to them how they feel and who they're working with. If they're working with Selective, and they offer different packages. You know, like our house can't be insured for what it's worth. It's got to be insured for the full replacement value, which makes it twice the amount of insurance as if you just went out and bought another house, than what you could even sell it for. Those are just beliefs of the insurance company, and some of them, it's not one is wrong or right, you know. But anyway, we put it out, and they'll all look at it and say, I think you need this, I think you need that, and I think you need these 10 things changed.
I just think it's crazy to change insurance companies every 3 years. I mean, I've been with the same insurance company for 30 years. Or I think, you know what I mean? It's not something
When I was
simple
clerk,
to
the
do.
old board, a lot of them sitting here, had me do it every 2 years. Okay? So the philosophy here, these are big dollar amounts, leak removal, all that. I don't know, I just think to help the town keep coverage and it's amazing how good a deal you get when you put these things out for bid, and each couple of years is a nice, reasonable amount. They've been handling it for 3 years, right?
But
But
you said they were 4 or 5?
But I redid it. I redid it a couple
So
times.
they want it every time?
Yeah. Yeah, Sue?
Yeah, anybody I ever worked for, every 2 years, we did a rebid on the insurance. Sometimes you stayed with the same people,
Sometimes you
sometimes
change.
you didn't. And they took care of everything
Yeah.
when they redid it.
That insurance again was changed for other reasons, so we just need to get back on this, whether it's leaf removal, whatever it is, I think we need to get back and bid out, do a good job for the town and get bids, and if they can beat them, fine. If they can't beat them, fine. I don't care, as long as we're getting the
Get the best deal for
best
the
deal.
town.
Yeah.
Good.
All right, so, is that what you guys want to do? Would you like to get bids on it, more bids? Yes.
Just to bring ourselves up to date, yeah.
Okay, I make a motion that we put a package together, we take our existing package and we put it out for bids to 2 or 3 other insurance companies. And-
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to put it out for bids in a second. All in favor say yeah, aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Okay, that passes. I'll get with you, Michelle, on that. We can work out the thing together.
So who does the specs?
Well, the last time, the old insurance company did the specs and then put it out. If you want MBH to make up the specs, they could do it. But usually, originally when we changed, and the board had me check, I think it was Mitchell or Michael or something, and they made up the specs. And then, as we handed them out, the other insurance companies said, hey, I think you need this, and you didn't have that. I mean, there was a lot of changes on that one. We didn't have a lot of coverage. And so we added those in, and then it went out for a bid package. You know, so, and either rep would, I'm sure, who's the rep for Henrietta?
Bob Ryan.
Bob Ryan, okay. I'm sure he would make it up, or I'm sure Brent Skelton would make it up, so. Okay, another thing, because there's a lot of questions and people have asked me, it's been on Facebook, just one real simple thing. In January of 2020, this year, we've used 2.25 hours of Reed's time up. He sent us a memo, we've used quite a bit. 12.25. In January of 2019, we used 38.1 hours for that month. So we're on track to be saving a lot less hours, but it is a new board and we do have a lot of questions. And probably as the months go on, the hours will even get less. But The old board used a lot of hours in January.
You also have for treasurer.
Another,
I had a lot going on.
okay. Yeah, and we do, but there's a lot of, the way it's posted out there on the sites is the horrendous costs and all that. So I'm just clarifying those two things. Natalie Steele wrote a good letter. I like her ideas, but everybody ought to read her November 19th letter in the Daytonian and get the complete other side of what she just said tonight. Okay, and the last thing is, I called Steve Brock for some, down in the future, I've talked to him, he called me thanking and congratulating us and everything. And I asked him that I wanted to start getting with him sometime, and I'll get with you, Michelle, on getting information and costs on what we need to do to look into water and sewage rates sometime this year, not in the next month or two, but sometime this year to see if we can possibly lower them a little or whatever. Maybe we can't, maybe we can, but we at least want to look into it, so.
Just to give you guys a heads up, there is a House bill that just went. It went last night. I haven't heard if it's passed or not. There was a bill that passed last year that said municipalities could not hold a landlord responsible for a tenant's unpaid utility bills. So then that forced towns to put all utility bills in the landlord's name. Well, now a new bill editing that went to see if it got passed, saying that not only under no circumstance could you force a landlord to pay a tenant's bill, but you can also not force a landlord to put the property in their name. So if that passes, that hurts us very badly, because right now we can place a lien on the property. If that passes,
We're sunk. That, we have 100, when I was clerk, of the 526 houses, we had at that time, 181 were rentals in this town. So that's 1 out of every 3rd houses is a rental. And I'll tell you what, a lot of those landlords probably tell you, and they always told me, to put the bill in the person, I'm not paying it, and they walked out with $5,000–6,000, and they still didn't want to pay it. That thing goes through, it's gonna hurt a lot of towns.
exactly,
It'd be
and a lot
ridiculous.
of people are fighting it right now.
Yeah,
But
I
I'm
hope
just
so. I hope
letting
so.
you know that if that passes,
Good, good.
that can hurt utility rates.
Nationally, home ownership's only about 64%. So,
Is it, yeah.
you know, your statistics, I don't know that we're too far off the national average. But, you know, what we can do possibly is take a look at our security deposits and some things like that. So,
Yeah.
I got a question on that. Is there a way that you can monitor when the bills start to get high so they don't go, like you're saying, like...
They can't go past.
Yeah, like, because I know that we cut
45
down the
days.
days, 45 days, but I still feel like they just passed that on a lot of people.
Yeah, and we've, like we collected 6,600 in property liens for utility bills, but that's the problem. If it's a tenant, and they know that legally it doesn't matter, that their landlord can't make them pay, I mean, we can shut them off, but you can't shut off people that live in well houses.
And then you can't really take them and put a lien on for 45 days,
No,
right?
we cannot put a
So-
lien on a landlord's house that the tenant lives in there.
Yeah, and years and years and years and years ago, it used to be like 3 months, and we had some big ones on there. But
Right.
anyway, the 45 days would still, and that's a lot of money.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can shut their water off, but we can't put a lien and we can't force that.
Yeah, and so they have
that
them on,
owner
that
to
could be
pay.
$300, right, like that, and then they
Right.
come in and wanna pay $50.
Or
and
if
then
they keep the hose on just to...
Yeah, just to piss you
Right.
off, and, yeah, so.
Yeah.
I hope they don't pass that, that would be,
Yeah.
but they have been talking about that same thing for years and years, too.
Well, they did pass it last year saying that we could not put a lien or force the landlord to pay. Then that's what forced towns to put all utilities in landlords' names. But now they're trying to pass that you can't force a landlord to put it in their name, and that you can absolutely not force the landlord to pay for a tenant's unpaid bill.
Let's hope we got good landlords that morally do the right thing. Okay, that's all I have. Report of council members. Yes, well, we skipped Mark first, so Mark, if you want to give your report from the utilities, both.
I apologize for my tardiness. My mind was saying 7, but my paperwork was saying 6. glad you texted me.
I figured that's what happened, because I was like, Mark's here an hour early, every meeting. You don't live too far.
Okay, first item on there under water is a lead and copper proposal that the federal EPA's putting together. So every 3 years, 10 sites in Dayton have to be tested for lead and copper levels. The last time it was required was in 2018, so it will be in 2021 then. All of our results came back, was undetectable. That's how little there is, if any, in it. So there's no problem with lead or copper in Dayton. But the what they call the action level is 15 parts per million, or per billion, and they want to change that to 10. That'll affect a lot of towns, but I don't think it'll affect Dayton because we just don't have a lot of lead water lines in our town. Where it will affect us, another part of this is that they're going to start requiring, if this passes, that all schools and all licensed daycare centers get tested annually. And we would incur the cost of that. This isn't law yet, but it's just proposal that I got an email about that said, hey, just to make you aware. So in the future, right now we do it every 3 years. We have to have 10 samples. Just know that in the future it may be that in addition to that every 3 years, we have to do it every year for just a couple places here in town. Okay. Second thing, stained water. So on December 28th, I got an email from a resident over on Marquis Circle. Had stained water. I asked Tammy to speak to, I was out of town then, I asked Tammy to speak to a couple of the neighbors and see if they were having the same problem. She did, and they were. So I went out there also myself, and you know, at first you always think of a couple of things, and those are, do you have a water softener? And secondly, do you have water filters? Is the water softener working right? Or the filter's been changed? Both of those things worked out fine. So what I suspect was the cause of that is that I was still flushing one hydrant a week to try to get the chlorine levels in the fresh water circulating through town. Well, that's stirring up the system. So it wouldn't surprise me if there were other residents who just didn't take the time to actually contact me that were having some stained water. Because what it does, it just breaks some of the iron loose on the inside of the water mains. So I haven't flushed any hydrants for 2 weeks. At the end of this week, I'm going to get a hold of this resident and say, hey, did the system clean up for you now? And I suspect it will. So if any residents get a hold of you, as always, point them towards me, but at least you have a little bit more information in your conversation with them. Okay?
Mark, addressing that, this resident actually did make a concern that she had to flush her toilet 15 times. She was concerned about it upping her bill, but I think Mark went and read it and showed that there wasn't going to be enough of a difference to actually throw her over to a higher bill.
And yes, she did contact me about that also. I said, well, let's compare last month's to this month's, and we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Okay?
So in case of
Yeah, and I don't think it went up.
I don't think
The
I think it was-
usage had not
it
gone
was
up,
still
you
the
know.
same
Because you
value.
think about it, let's say you flush the
I
toilet
haven't seen it.
10 times. I mean, it's only 10 gallons of water. But anyway, she's right. It might come to something, but we'll see. Next item is a water audit workshop. I've been talking about that for a couple months. Well, it's finally here, so on the 27th, I'll be in Indianapolis all day for this required water audit workshop. Part of the things where if the town wants to be eligible for funding and stuff, they have to do that, so something has to be done. I wish it was somewhere else than Indy, but that's where it's at. So, wastewater. Each year, we're required to send an annual report to Lafayette Renew. That report has things such as, are we doing our inspections for grease and grit chambers? We have our meter annually calibrated. How much money have we spent on the wastewater system, on the stormwater system? They want to see that we're taking care of our system before it's pumped to Lafayette. That's something that's due every first of the year. If anybody would like to see that, you're welcome to. I'll share that with you. I think one thing you might get from it is see what expenditures we've had on those two systems in the last year. 2.5-inch rain. So the recent rain we had, on an average day, we purchased or used 70,000 gallons of water, and we pump out or send to Lafayette about 65,000. We knew that during rainfall events somehow stormwater or rainwater was getting into our sanitary sewer mains. That's why we went out and had over a mile of our sewer mains televised and inspected. Didn't find anything. So now I'm even tracking it more, trying to figure it out. Well, after that 2.5-inch rain, we went from 65 to 135,000 gallons in a 24-hour period. So it more than doubled it. The next day it dropped down to 100,000. Yesterday it was 78,000, so now it's getting back down to normal. So the wastewater collection system here is fairly new. It's not ancient or it's not clay tile like it is in some towns. So, just like in Deerfield, the next question is downspouts and sump pumps that are illegally tied into the system. So the next step I would like to take is to work with Michelle and on the town website, put ordinance 5306, which pertains to illegal connections to the sanitary sewer system with stormwater, whether it be sump pumps, downspouts, whatever. And then along with that, put a paragraph just encouraging people and explaining that these hookups cost the town significantly and therefore cost the residents money. So I'm just wanting to, one, cite the ordinance, but two is explain the thinking behind not wanting to have these hooked up into it. Okay? So how would you feel about that? Would that be all right?
I think it definitely needs to be done.
Yes.
Do you want to do an insert in the bills with that ordinance?
No, at first I just want to put it on the town website, and we'll just see if that even draws any attention at all. Hopefully it will. Yeah.
When they redid all the water in town here, so this would have had to happen after that time?
No. Sewer was put in before water.
So time period, I'm just trying to imagine.
I can only tell you about the last 18 months. I don't have any records from previously.
Sewer system's 35 years old.
Into the 70s and into 80s.
Yeah. We've only been able, town of Dayton has known for a long time that we've got what they refer to as an I&I problem, water infiltration. We have not been able to measure that until we redid some lift stations. We put mission control systems on sanitary sewer lift stations. And part of mission control on those lift stations is we can see what our usage is,
Pump hours.
Based on hours and runtime. And so that helps you focus on certain areas of town where we see elevated run times during high rain events. But we've known for years via Lafayette treats our sewer system. They have to treat our sewer system, our sewage differently during high rain events as opposed to low rain events. So they've been corresponding with
Encouraging us.
to, guys, you got a problem, try to get, look at it,
Oh,
get it
okay.
fixed, so.
Did you do those smoke bombs and everything before, or last
I don't
year?
know, no, I haven't.
No, we have not.
Okay.
Talked about it,
You
but never
guys-
done it.
Yeah, that's maybe, coming up in the next step or two.
Could be.
Can you,
We did the camera systems, but,
Inspections.
and that didn't, didn't throw up any red flags.
Go ahead, Jim.
can you, make some sort of guess, I don't know that it matters, but like based on how the numbers almost doubled in 24 hours, how many houses we're looking for? Like how many
No,
houses would have to be dumping for it to double?
no, it's hard to say. It is, it's hard to say.
Okay.
Where the town is coming from, Mark?
No, all three of the major lift stations, the fourth lift station is at the end of Prairie Lane, and there's only 2 houses hooked in. But all 3 of the other major lift stations all saw increased run hours.
So a lot of people are gathering water from their gutters or down
I
in the
suspect
basement, wet
there's some-
basements,
I-
and pumping it into the.
You know, because what it is, so you've got a basement, and you put a sump pump in there, and you're saying, well, let's just run the hose out the basement window and let it go in the yard. Well, that doesn't last very long. And they say, well, let's just run it right into this line right here, you know? That way we don't have to worry about it anymore. And it happens, and it happened forever. But the problem is that then we're paying to have rainwater treated, and it affects everybody's bill because it affects ours. Yeah, I mentioned earlier, a few months ago, that we had jumped from an average of 1.8 million gallons a month being pumped to Lafayette to over 3 million during a wet season. You know, so it almost doubled our bill, and that bill is significant. I mean, you're talking about the difference between 14 and 25,000 in a month.
Just out of curiosity, these cameras going to people's
No,
homes?
no, it just does a sewer main.
Cameras, they make cameras that can go up a 4-inch line, but
Now, they can turn up the laterals if you want to, but we just do the mains.
I'm thinking of CIA stuff, and you got this little tiny thing, and it goes up inside somebody's basement, you know?
I think there's a lot of, like, there's a house I'm working on that the basement fills with water. And I think because when you guys did the streets and everything, it raises everything up, it holds it in the yard, it goes down in the basement, you sump pump it out into your sewer probably or something.
hopefully, it's illegal to hook up to a sewer
Yeah,
system,
yeah.
so hopefully it's not hooked up.
Well, this is already hooked up. Gotta unhook it.
Yes.
But that's what I think happens.
So,
you know,
yeah.
Because there's a lot of houses, their backyards.
Well, there's a lot of places where just over 50 years, the streets have come up. You wouldn't think so, but they have, and now the yards are sitting lower than the streets and they're trapped, you know.
I mean, like rats coming up in the toilets, I mean, you know, they just come right out of the drain.
But we don't have that problem yet.
That happened with Lafayette.
Alligators.
I don't know, let's move on.
Deerfield and Prestwick are relatively pretty new.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure about Deerfield, but I know Prestwick has no basement, so where would they be using a sump pump when it was mostly?
You know, even houses that are on slabs, a lot of times they'll have a sump pump
So
pit.
you can get them.
You know, and I don't know which ones do or don't, but often they do, even a slab. Yeah, where you live's a major contributor, buddy. So,
38.
Just saying.
It's me.
A lot of the.
You know, it's the whole town. It's not just the whole town, it's just everything. So we'll just do this first step, you know, is what I want to do before we invest any more money, whether it's in smoke testing or more televising, whatever it may be. But I just thought we need to keep aware of it and keep it on topic so that we're not just saying, well, that was then, you know, it's dry now. I'm just looking here, so that annual report that I sent to Lafayette Renew about how much money we spend and stuff, I'd made a copy right here. Anybody want a copy of it? Just
I don't need a copy.
The annual report? Yeah.
you can share it or I can make one, you know, like I said, the main thing is I'll show the expenditures. Okay, so while we're on the topic of this rainfall and stuff, will move to stormwater. So, group of homeowners over on Main Street, where they're having that exact problem that you're speaking of, Ron. Their homes and yards sit lower than the streets. The problem is, you pump the water out, but it's got no place to go except filtered it back into the ground and come back into your basement. It's been going on for quite some time. Karen Howe here is the one that brought it to my attention, and she brought some pictures this evening just of this last rain. And we've seen it rain more than that. You know, that was a 2.5 inch rain we had just the other day, but it shows water standing in the yards. There's just not a lot of, there's not a stormwater system right there close that they can tie into. And I guess for just a second, that goes back to our other problem is, so let's say someone comes to me and says, hey, I got a sump pump, give me a place to pump it to, you know. Then identify where our stormwater pipes are in that neighborhood and try to put together something for them, you know. And we have to provide an option to them. We can't just tell them no. So be sure you keep that in mind, that we have a responsibility. If we don't want it going into the sanitary sewer and costing the town more money, we've got to provide a stormwater system that will accept their water, okay?
But there is no stormwater in some areas, right?
Right. In most areas there is, but there's places where it'll need to be extended, is what I'm saying. And so that brings me to where I'm at. So, I'm going to show you a map of the stormwater system along Dayton Road for these folks on Main Street.
Thank you.
That I spoke to you about this before, Ron?
We've talked off and down about the problem.
So you'll see, so hold it like this, okay? You'll see that black dash line going up along Dayton Road. That's a stormwater main, okay? If you go to the bottom of the page or to the south, that would take you to the intersection of Main and Dayton Road, right over here, okay? Has everybody got their bearings about where they're at? Because that's important.
No. There's a horse way back over here.
You're immediately south of the stop sign at
This-
College and Dayton
Yeah,
Road.
but this right here is the corner of
Main
Main.
and Dayton Road.
That's where
Okay.
that camper, that big camper set.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, that stormwater main is running along Dayton Road. There are 4 houses there in that block that they can't get away from their sump pumps. It just keeps recycling back into the basements, okay? So the dash line that I'm showing going to the east, I'm proposing putting in 130 foot of 8-inch stormwater pipe to the east, and where that X is, put it in a catch basin, just like you see along the curbs there, okay? This will provide an outlet for those 4 homes to pump their basement or stormwater to. Turn to the second page. It kind of gives you the infrastructure picture of that. So if you hold this one like this, okay, and see where Main Street is down there at the bottom of it? Okay, so at the intersection of Dayton Road and Main Street, we have 3 catch basins, okay? And then that water goes north, because it's all heading north on Dayton Road to the ditch out there, okay? So right there, where I'm proposing to put 140 foot of 8-inch stormwater pipe, you'll see that square box, that is an existing stormwater catch basin. So we just tap into the side of it, run the water over, or the pipe over. Here's the important thing. Go back to the first page, and where that dashed line, see in between the two properties where there's a gap? This came off of the county, whatever you call that, beacon. That gap is representing where we have, the town has utilities in through there, okay? So, as far as that point goes, you know, you can't just say, hey, I'm gonna run a pipe through your yard. As far as that goes, that's acceptable. Other parts that acceptable is that she has talked to all three of her other neighbors. They're all for it too, because they need a place to put this water. So my question is, at the bottom of the second page, see that number I wrote down there? Don't say that number, because I need to know if, I don't know what the magic number is in town here, so if we need to put it out for bids or not. If that number is higher than what we need to put out for bids, then I don't want you to give out this contractor's bid, and then have other people come in and bid on it. So, before we get past that, so what is the magic number? Do we say anything over 5,000, 10,000? What is that magic number we say? When we get to this point, we need to get bids. Just so that I know whenever I'm looking at projects. Is there a number or something that says something somewhere? Do you know?
There is.
Sounds like
There's
you
rules.
have.
Yeah, you don't have to, I mean, but it used to be 25, then it was 50, but it seems to me like when you're doing $5,000, $10,000 worth of work, you ought to get a couple bids.
Well, and that's what I'm asking. I mean, that's why I'm asking.
There's certain requirements for certain projects or certain things.
And
I
then-
can
What
get
are
you-
those?
I can get you those in the hour or a day that I work. I'm sure I can finish it.
When they put that sidewalk on Dayton Road down to church, at that time it was 25,000, then came in at 24,500, you know, and then they added on a couple of things, but now then it's census, I think it's 50 or even a little more, but we still got bids on that, even though we had that.
Okay, with that number,
Under state law, something like this could be discretionary spending without any bids whatsoever, but as a board, you may want to, get a couple.
so.
I think it's just good business.
And that's,
Get bids.
and that's fine, that's fine. I think what that does is that you have to be careful. Sometimes that doesn't always work out in your favor. But, so with that number that you see down there, you feel that we should solicit bids for it?
I'm fine with you going with whoever did that number. I mean, for 140-foot catch basin and all that stuff, and plus.
I just need to know, it doesn't matter to me, I can get bids. I'm more the guy that goes out, and I'd like to just see things get done. But I understand the fiscal being conservative and saying, hey, we need to see if we can make this more competitive and get a better price, which is what you're trying to do.
Well, we got like a little bid on the police station on the brickwork. Just those two bids, that saved us $4,000.
Is that right?
I mean, and it was in this
Was it?
neighborhood, it was
Yeah.
amazing, and they were both buddies that bid on it actually, went to school together.
So
it's real competitive, I mean.
yeah,
it's
and I
a set
prefer,
job.
it makes my job easier if I just go find a guy, I give you the price, and you say, yeah, let's do it. I mean, it does, I'm not gonna kid anybody, because that just makes things move quicker, and I can move on to the next project. But, so what you're telling me is that we need to get bids on this?
You guys think?
What's the timeline if we do get bids? Is it like, put out the bid, wait a month,
Yeah.
pick a
okay,
bid, wait a month?
There's a certain thing on certain prices. Some you can just put out a bid, some you have to advertise in the paper. There's different,
Yeah, the big ones you gotta advertise.
Ron, I think when we say bids, I think really what we're talking about is get two quotes.
Quotes.
Quotes, yeah.
Quotes.
Quotes are
You don't
different than
have to,
bids.
you go show two people what you want done and you.
Yes,
Try
yes,
to get it
this
tweaked.
isn't putting it in the newspaper,
Right.
soliciting bids, but this is what we all understand, is get a price on it.
Jim, to answer your question, if it's over, I think it's $150,000, we need to go to full-blown bids in the newspaper, advertised twice, and all
So
that
for this,
stuff.
we could be like, hey, Mark, find a good price.
Something like this, we could get one quote or get two quotes and go with whichever of the two is on it, or?
So we do that and then we have to wait until the next
No.
meeting? Oh,
No. I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but I think, you know, if the board wants Mark to get 2 quotes, have him get 2 quotes, and have him go with whichever
yeah.
person or company he wants to go with, you know, if they're, you know, sometimes one guy does things a little bit different than another guy, and it may be, that guy's, you know, a few bucks higher, but, you know, if Mark feels that's the way to go, then pay a few more bucks and go that way.
Get it sooner. Yeah, okay.
You know,
That
it's,
sounds good.
that's good.
I like that idea.
Okay.
Quotes,
All right, and that's fine.
try to get this problem solved.
Yeah, as quick as possible. I mean,
Yeah, I drove by there, we used to have a garden hose out there all the time.
yeah,
Yeah.
we'll try to move it along as quickly as possible. So go to the 3rd page. It's another stormwater project. So it sits like this, okay, with that top being north. That is a drainage swell that goes from south to north. At the north end of it, there's a stormwater grate where all that swell drains to. A couple residents got a hold of me last year, and their downwater, or their rainwater downspouts, they don't have them hooked into the storm or into the sanitary sewer. They've got them going back to this swell, and it's filled up with silt over the years, and actually has some 24, 30-inch trees growing in it.
It's filled up with more than that. John Swick had me checked 10, 15 years ago, and I walked that, and people hauling out their leaves and their
Yeah.
branches and everything, just filled the whole drainage thing
Yeah.
out.
So at the south end of it is actually a stormwater outlet. There's an 18-inch concrete stormwater outlet pipe that's supposed to empty into that, and you can only see about the top 8 inches of it. That's how much that ditch is silted in, plus debris and whatever. So the number at the bottom of that page is what they bid on doing that. So I'll do the same thing with it. I'll get a second quote on that one. But it's needed also. I mean, it's got a stormwater pipe, 75 or 66% plugged up, you know. So it just hasn't been paid attention to it. And in all honesty, if these homeowners hadn't gotten a hold to me, it's just not there's no street to it. You know, it's not like you drive by and see this. But I'll get another quote for that one also. And
So this is kind of phase 2, you know, carry over from what, the other drainage ditch that we got
yeah,
cleaned
you know,
out.
now that we have the main drainage ditch cleaned out and all the outlets above grade and emptying now we're working our way, you always start at the lowest point, and now we're working our way back into the system to address these other parts of the stormwater system. And part of that will be not only maintaining what we have, but adding new lines. I mean, that's part of that $5 fee a month that the homeowners pay. And we have a responsibility to provide those for them, okay? All right, so,
That's where the money for all this comes from.
Yes.
Stormwater.
yeah, sure is, yeah.
Is that the one that's behind Gentry?
Yeah, yeah.
Starts back there on Republican, yeah, that machine shed.
Is that, and it goes behind that open lot that was for sale? I think
Yeah,
it's sold.
that's where it starts at.
That's sold though to a builder, and I think they're gonna build a house or something.
I don't know, that kind of fell apart.
Okay.
You know, it was coming fast and furious for a little bit, but then whenever they figured out that there's some other, you know, it's just like anything, they're getting ready to start on this TDS automation. Well, 6 months ago, the guy called me and said, hey, I'm putting in the water line. Well, they didn't know that you gotta go through these protocol before you can build something, you know. So it slows people down.
Mark,
Yeah.
we need to check to see
Right away.
right away on these properties on this.
That second page, see, doesn't show that line or that demarcation where the town has an easement through there. So before that one would proceed, we'd have to do some investigation and seeing what is our legal right to get in there and clean that ditch. If we don't, then we need to go the route of working with these homeowners and saying, hey, we need some kind of easement through here, a maintenance easement, to keep this maintained. I don't,
Yeah, it's gonna be hard to get behind some of those.
well, you know, Jefferson Street actually shows that it goes to that ditch. You know, there's not an abandoned, it hasn't been officially abandoned, so we still have a right of way
It's
over
where that
there.
X is at the end of the ditch.
Yeah.
It shows right of way coming over from Republican.
You're right,
Okay, we good there?
An engineer to look at this at all, or?
No, because then we just increase our cost.
right. Yeah, you gotta go see that whole ditch.
Basically, if they're cleaning the ditch out, they gotta make it slope out so water runs downhill.
Keep her on grade,
Regarding the
you know.
right of way.
You know, and that's the thing, if you get into, to the right-of-way part, yes, we might need to, but let me look into it first, okay? But on the, whenever he says engineer, I think, you know, if we have to go get bids, not quotes, but bids, I mean, that just multiplies on itself.
No, I just
What I
meant
think is a
the
$4,000 project costs $15,000 now, you know?
the town engineer, one right of way's on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we good with those, and I know what to do, and we'll move forward. So the first one, I'm going to get a second quote on, whichever one's best and meets the criteria, I have the authority to pull the trigger and move forward with. The second one, I'm going to get a second quote with, but we also need to look into easements or right-of-way or whatever is required to get in and do that work, okay? I know I'm taking a lot of time here. So on streets, Yost Drive, every 3 months, town's required to submit a quarterly report to NDOT showing the status of it, any funds spent, that kind of thing. I filled out that report on January 9th. It then goes to Area Plan Commission. They sign off on what I say. They send it back. I sign it. It goes to the state. So I just let you know that that has been done. I'm still waiting to hear back from Area Plan, but we've done our part. Community crossing. So this Friday, be advertised in the paper. Next Friday will be the second advertisement. There where I see it says February 14th, that is wrong. February 3rd is the bid opening day. So here's a scenario. All contractors have to have their sealed bids into this town hall by 4 o'clock on February 3rd. On February 3rd at 4 o'clock, me, Stan, the representative of VS Engineering, and the contractors are always welcome to be at the bid opening. So me, Stan, guy from VS Engineering, will open the bids, we'll look at them. VS Engineering will take those bids for review because they have to make sure it meets all the specifications of what we're wanting done. They'll come back with a recommendation before the February 10th board meeting. So at that board meeting, Stan will have the information. This is the bid, this was the low bid, it's recommended by the engineer. We need a motion to award this bid. Okay? So that's how that's going to unfold. All right? One thing that Mark Albers, he's the project engineer for us on this 2019 community crossing money. I was speaking to him the other day. He said, hey, if possible, I have a tree that I would like to see removed on Shady Lane. And you'll see there where it says 20-inch hackberry tree on the west side. And if you go over there, I put a yellow ribbon on it. If you go over there, it's very close to the edge of the pavement, you know. And just your mind tells you to drift over away from that, even though it's not in the street. You know, you just naturally do that. So I said, well, let me see. So what he's requesting, and it's not part of the state 75-25, this is out of the town's pocket, is to have that tree cut down, not the stump, but cut the stump as low to the ground as possible, but have that tree taken out. I got a price from Wildcat Tree Service yesterday, and it's $850 to cut it and haul it away. So my question is, do you want that done?
And that's the tree that Sue Slick a year ago asked, the first one she started with was that tree. Because it's so close to the road.
Yeah.
Hidden trailers and stuff like that.
So, you want me to have that tree taken out?
I think so.
Okay. Well, I'll call them tomorrow and tell them that, you know, as long as it's done before our project's done, so I'll say, hey, if you can get to it in the next 2 weeks.
Can they just drop the tree, take everything, all the limbs, everything, and
Yeah, they're taking
lay
it all.
10-foot sections and I'll haul it away?
You know what, I just got a price for him just doing it, you know. So, okay, here's another note about this street project, just so that, which I appreciate Al, Jen, and Stan, you all met with me in December, and I kind of brought you up to speed on the town's commitments and some challenges that we're facing, but I want to repeat this. So, the total project cost was estimated to be $225,600. That was in June of last year when we submitted this application. State came back, gave us the big check, said here's 75% of it, $169,200. In speaking to the engineer, I said, you know, it seems like we're doing some ADA ramps, because what I didn't know is that any place you work on a street, you have to update the ADA ramps to new specs. Well, that's not cheap work, you know. That's concrete work that you have to tear out, put in new, it's all that. And I said, are we still going to be at this 225 number? Or can we drop something off or do something? He said, no, he said, you're not going to be at that number. He said, you're probably going to be 10% above that. So that takes us up to about 248, 250. We still only get the 75% of that original 225 number. Okay, so our costs are going up some here, and it all depends on the bids. We might get a bid that's under the 225 that we originally estimated at, but it might be more. You're kind of at the mercy of the market, you know. And that's the thing about this time frame where we put this together in June. It'll be almost a whole year before we can do this work, and that's not good. But that's the requirements that the state has when you use their money. You have to jump through all these hoops to make them happy to get this funding. So I'm just planting that seed. I'm saying, hey, don't be surprised if these bids come in a bit higher than that.
So is it going higher because it's a year later, or is it going higher because of the ADA ramps?
I think it'll be the ADA ramps, but he thinks it's going to be because of the cost of labor and material that went up. So it might be both, you know.
And you and I have talked about this because that's where the concern was about how we're getting fall grants, but then not doing it until spring because somehow it got off of.
It's screwed up.
So you really should, after we finish this, you guys should consider not applying for a fall grant and then starting over with the spring in 2020, so that when you get granted that spring, you don't have to worry about closing out because you have to close out the previous project by January something.
Well, like Marco's saying, there's not enough time anyway, hardly
Right.
to get it when they split that bid thing.
So then you have to think about the cost going up, so then if you wait, just do this, don't do anything for the fall, but then wait to do spring 2020, then you'll be back on track, because then you'll be getting that money and doing it, so that we can get back on track, because it's not helping us when we're getting a grant.
And this is
we're
brand new
later.
this year. They just started in 2019, I should say last year, the January, July thing. We just need to get on the right rotation, but we'll get there. While I'm thinking of it, so Duke Energy is boring in an electric line out at Yost Drive and Hine Drive, and they called me out there to do a locate to mark where our sewer main and water mains are and stuff out there. And I found a water valve out there. So Hine Drive, you tee into Hine Drive on Yost, you look to your right, there's I don't know, maybe a 20-foot mulberry tree. That tree is growing around the water valve. We need to get that tree removed and get that water valve dug up. So, I mean, so you have an idea, a water valve box is 6-inch tube about 4 foot long, you know, and just making sure you can get that wrench on there and shut that main off if you need to. So it's got it all cocked over, and I need to get that tree out of there and get that water valve box stood back up straight, so if we had a leak out there, I could get that shut off. I got a price of, let me see, they just sent it to me this evening. So to remove the tree and repair the meter box and hauling all that off is $565. You want me to do that?
I'd make a motion, would you do exactly that, remove that mulberry tree for $565?
Okay. Got a motion and a second to remove the mulberry tree for $550. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Yes.
$565.
Now,
$565.
do we have to make a motion for the $850?
You can if you want to.
Yeah.
Make a motion that we spend $850 to remove 20-inch hackberry tree on
Shady
Shady
Lane.
Lane.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to remove the 20-inch hackberry tree on Shady Lane on the west side for $850. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no.
So the last item is, Scott had mentioned a month or two ago about a homeowner had requested a street light at Delaware and State Road 38. You remember that? So I got a hold of Duke Energy. There was no cost for the installation of the street light, but just like the other street lights, it cost us $9.77 a month maintenance fee. Would you like me to go ahead and have that street light put in? Thank you. All right, I'll get her done.
They wish they putting in LED or they go to this stand, so.
I think he said LEDs. I think so. Ours now, some are and some aren't. And usually twice a month I have to have them come in town and replace a bulb or ballast or something in one of these lights. But I don't see where they're switching them over to LEDs if they're currently not LEDs. I don't know if that's because they have to change something out to do that. I'm just not, I don't understand it well.
Well, usually it's cheaper to operate than the other one.
I know. You would think they would do it.
They ought to be cheaper.
Yeah.
I'd make a motion that we have Duke Energy put a street light in at the corner of Delaware and State Road 38. It's no cost to the town, but it's a $9 some odd cents monthly expense, same as our other lights.
Yep.
Second. Got a motion and a second to put a overhead light on a pole at what street?
Delaware 38.
Delaware and 38.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carried.
Okay. Any questions about anything else?
And Mark, I mean, McAllister, it's right there, McAllister, they've been pretty good to us. They got a piece of equipment, you just yank that tree out, all you have to pay for is fixed pipe.
Yeah.
I mean, they've done stuff for us before, let them do Bobcat and stuff.
Yeah, what happened the last time we asked him something? Oh, yeah. The last time I asked him to borrow that bush hog to mow that out there, it seemed to get delayed and complicated and stuff, so I just had the feeling that maybe I asked him enough.
Different guy charged there.
And it might be, but I don't want to feel like I wear out my welcome, you know what I mean, so. Okay. Anything else?
Okay, Scott, Marshall Taylor, report, police report.
Good evening. Maybe good night. I've got a question that kind of stirred my curiosity when we were talking earlier. Can the town of Dayton pass an ordinance amending the law or the ordinance to where you can pass an ordinance on first reading? It seems like we spend a lot of time debating this second ordinance stuff. Is that, our second reading stuff, is that a state law, or is that something that, I know you mentioned that other jurisdictions do things differently and some do it on first reading.
No, I believe that we do what we have to do, which is, and that's why people were concerned that we didn't make the motion, but yeah, I don't.
Is that because of the state law or because that's our ordinance?
State law.
But state law did say that if an ordinance is not passed unanimously, which it wasn't, that you could not do a second reading.
I get all
but
that.
then-
Didn't want to open another can of worms. I just was trying to suggest something to simplify.
No, it's what the remedy is for if you violate a law, which
I get it.
It's
I get
different.
that. All of you got copies of our activity reports for December and 2019. A couple comments on that. I do review the activity of our department daily to keep aware of what's happening in the town. I also review all calls for service that the sheriff's office responds to when we're not on duty. When I'm on vacation, when I return, I review every call for service that happens in Dayton in my absence. I do this to make sure that the residents are being served in a professional manner and to personally follow up on issues that may not have been handled well or at all, hopefully. I also look at the monthly and yearly trends to see if our resources and manpower are being used efficiently and within the confines of our budget. I believe that all residents deserve a full-time, dedicated police department that is able to respond 24/7. Unfortunately, the town is not in a financial position to provide that. At this time, the call volume does not suggest that there's a need for additional officers either, even though I think that Dayton would be better served if we had more. I believe the activity reports that you have show that we're handling the majority of the varying law enforcement responsibilities efficiently. The town of Dayton still has a relatively low crime rate. I attribute this to proactive police patrols and visibility. With the manpower we have currently, we're able to stay ahead of and deter crimes from happening. I believe that my code enforcement efforts are helping to keep property values high and encouraging pride of home ownership. Dayton is a desirable place to live, and homes don't stay on the market for long when they come up for sale. I think this is a positive reflection on our department. Even though there wasn't much overall change in the stats from previous years, I would like to point out how a new business can affect our resources. Dollar General has been in business for approximately 14 months now. We have had approximately in the area of 50 calls generated by that one business. The majority of these were parking complaints. We also had shoplifting issues, suspicious persons calls, alarms, and trash issues. I bring this up not to be negative about the store, because it seems to have been overall well received by the community. I just bring this up to make you aware that when we have new businesses, it does affect the amount of work and resources and time to respond to new things that we didn't have before. Are there any specific comments or questions about activity trends or something you saw in the stats that I provided?
I didn't get one of these in my packet.
It's not in the packet. I emailed it to everybody.
I don't think
Send it to the email.
Did you send it to the Dayton?
The one you provided me. No, I haven't got any emails on the Dayton.gov. I've not been updated with that.
Okay.
So it went to your old email
Okay.
that you
perfect.
provided me when we had the conference.
Did any of the calls to the gas stations go down when the calls to the general store, Dollar General go up?
Say that again.
Did you get less calls to the gas station when you got more calls to Dollar
No.
General?
Did
No.
it ship from the gas station?
No, no. They're two separate issues. We get relatively few shoplifting calls from the Circle K. Not that I don't think it's happening, I just think it's their store policy. They handle a lot of stuff internally and will write it off, whereas other companies and stores are a little more proactive on it, and Dollar General seems to be. The majority of the complaints have been in parking issues, and that's from semis using their lot at night and them coming in the morning and can't get in their lot. So we've had to deal with a lot of that stuff, and that's
Do they
overflow
park
from
right
the
on
trucks.
that corner?
Pardon?
Park right on that entrance? Is that what-
Everywhere.
Yeah.
But we've addressed that, and once they started getting a few tickets, then word gets spread around, just like the problems along Yost and High Drive. Once you start writing a few tickets, then they get word that they can't park there.
Yeah.
Trash has been the other somewhat of an issue that I've had to address with them. Them in Circle K are in the same boat. The trash from their business is getting blown everywhere. Anything else on the activity? No, I'll move along. Previous month, I brought up that we were going to change, or asked to change our phone company at the police station to Mulberry Communications, which is what the current town hall is on. Previously, we couldn't all be on the same one because I couldn't port my number over from down there because of the geographic areas serviced by the two companies. Well, that changed. I was able to port my phone number over to Mulberry Communications, which will allegedly, what they're telling me, save us some money, and it also increased our internet speed, which was a problem down there. Frontier couldn't offer anything other than a 3 gig download speed, and most companies are starting at like a 25 now. So that was the reason for that change, and hopefully it'll make it easier for billing and be a little cheaper for the town for us all to be under the same umbrella and on the same bill with the company. There was a $600 service bill from Ford on the 2015 Squad. I don't know if anybody noticed it or not. I just wanted to bring that up, that was for brake work done on the vehicle. Also on a topic of squad cars, I'd been asked by a previous council what my ideas were on rotating squad cars in and out to try to get them on a rotational basis, and been thinking about that over the past 5 years. And my suggestion, and this is just food for thought to think of as we go along this year, but I think a 6-year rotation on the squad cars seems to be a kind of a logical starting point. And when I say 6 years rotation, that means as a car gets 6 years old, we trade it. So if we would do that, that would be trading a car every 3 years. And the 2015, that would put it due to get rotated out in 2021. So I bring that up now, if you're agreeable with that, just so we can make plans. And I've talked to Michelle about that also, so we can be planning forward about that cost coming up. For just kind of comparison, that will put around, I'm guessing around 50, 55, 60,000 miles on that car. Not a lot of miles, but there's a lot of time in hours on that vehicle being 6 years old. Previous to that, in 2018, that's the newest car we have. We traded a 2010 on that. So that car was 8 years old, and we were starting to see, the maintenance costs go up at that time. And not only does the maintenance cause problems, but it's time and effort for me to run it into the car dealership and schedule the stuff to be done and down a vehicle. So that's something else to consider when you're looking at when's the good time to trade in that car. So just food for thought, something to think about. We can discuss that later on in the year as it's time to order it. We normally do that in the fall to order it, because sometimes it takes 2 or 3 months for those to come in. We can start getting quotes and stuff at that time if you're agreeable on that type of a rotation.
A 6 year would also help, get a little bit more for trade-ins and some things like that. And I know reliability, seems like here a few years back we're having some reliability issues with some of the older squad cars.
We kept a couple, two.
Yeah, they're a little bit past their prime, so 6 years probably makes more sense.
The last thing I had is I'm looking into some grants. One in particular is to help pay for our bulletproof vests. There's 2 officers currently that we're buying for, and there's some government grants from the Department of Justice that we can apply for that won't pay for them all, but we might be able to get 50% reimbursement for the one we bought in the fall, and hopefully for the next one we have to buy in the spring. They vests are warranted for 5 years, and then after 5 years you have to replace them. So I'm looking into some possible cost offset for that. That's all I have. Question?
When we talked, I mentioned about what Eric had said about that big pot of safety money. Do you need to look into that, or do we need to look into that, try to get that money for your
Well,
speed signs?
I'm thinking that, I can't remember who's on the street department, ought to get with Mark and you guys that talk to that board about that money's accounting.
Yeah, that big pot of money there.
Who's on the street department? You, okay. So, are you familiar with that, Mark? They have a pool of money in that public. No, it's got nothing to do with that. This is about roads specifically, and I think it's a traffic safety type commission that there's a board that meets monthly. There's various entities that attend that board.
Well, then I might know something about, I mean, the transportation committee,
Yes, that's it.
I was just at that meeting, you know, I'm a member of it, I was at.
And they have funds that can be geared towards, what we were talking about was the radar speed signs. That I tried to get a grant last year and it fell through, but it would be nice to get one of those put on each end of the town.
I'll
Yeah.
make some phone calls.
An awesome deterrent for,
I'll check in.
Let's ask for 4. Maybe we'll settle for 2.
yeah, I mean, shoot high and settle for what
They're
you
the
get.
ones that tell you how fast you're going?
Yeah.
Yes, yes. And I've got some quotes and some information on it, but
Yeah.
I didn't know a lot about that committee and how to apply for it. So I figured that you were probably on it, would know who to
I'll check in.
contact.
Thank you, Scott.
The biggest problem with that is getting the state, allow the state to allow you to put that on 30 acres.
I already checked into that, and that's not a problem.
Okay. Do you have some ideas of where you want to place them at?
Oh, yeah.
Makes sense.
Existing posts?
Probably have to put a new pole in.
Okay, miscellaneous new and old business. Anybody got any? Comments from residents? Got any comments, people?
Gordon Hardybeck, 7701 Adams Road. Only reason I'm up here is I heard Mark talking about 18-inch drain pipe down on the north end of town that's draining water. As you know, when they engineered this out here, there is no drain pipes. It's supposed to be going to ponds. It overflows, where's it going? Still, you know, they all passed it, but, you know, you've got, you gotta get rid of the water. So what happens if a year or 2 or 3 down the road, we get a big rain and it just comes washing over? That's what you guys say. Then the town's liable for it. Where now, if they put something in, wouldn't Malacus?
Did you ever talk to Michelle from BF&S? Because when I talked to her a week ago, she said everything was pretty much under control and stuff.
Everything's under control, but there is no, how do I want to put this? There is no tiles or storm sewer drains leaving the property to go to
To the Wildcat.
or somewhere, because surely this 18-inch one's got to go somewhere. It's got to go, it goes somewhere, and then it's got to go to the Wildcat.
To the stormwater, and then it goes in.
Yeah, and there's nothing up here. And, you know, I was up here 3 or 4 times last year, and I never even thought too much about it until I heard him say, well, you know, it's overgrown. That's still not there's still nothing there. So, I mean, we're at their beckoning, saying that what they're gonna do is gonna quit. And they played a numbers game of saying it's gonna be 90% less. Well, if it's not 90% less, if it's half less, we're good. But what happens if it's 100% more? Then we're all hooked. You don't know. And I don't wanna see the town have to pay for it. Malacca ought to have to pay for it.
I gotta call her tomorrow, let me ask for you and see, but I'd ask her about is the state checking everything and all that, and she
Yeah.
said yes, and they've gone over, and,
You know, because now they rearranged how that stuff is draining into the catch basins, is that what I wanna call them? I think that's what it's called,
Retention ponds?
retention ponds, catch basins, retention ponds.
Catch basins are at the street.
Yeah.
Retention ponds.
Ponds, yeah, everything, all they did is repiped how they're doing it and bringing it. But still, if it ever goes over, it's still gonna run over the hill.
if it goes over, it'll knock at
It'll go to
Ashley's
Ashley's.
first, and then it'll go to your daughters, and then you.
Then, yeah, and that's, you know, still, it's before they start, I mean, you know, in the old days, they put a tile in down there to get rid of it.
One pond had like, I thought 20 outlet holes or something that the
Yeah,
spread.
well, that's something you might wanna just check, and that's,
Okay, I'll check.
I think Gordon, though, the numbers they gave, if those are kitchen ponds, wherever to fill up, and overflow, Wild Track Creek is already gonna be your yard. Just one of
it
those.
has come a long way.
Well, if those fill, but the numbers they have, if that ever fills up, that's probably what'll happen.
She said it was under control.
Yeah.
Tyrone Taylor, 734 Walnut Street. I just have a question. You're utility board president?
Yes.
Okay, this is for the three new members, just because I know Ron and Ashley's opinion of this, but, you know, Natalie was saying we need to bring in money and revenue to the town. Well, I saw the article that on Teal Road, Lafayette's gonna start changing their water. They're gonna move it over, and they're doing that whole sewer system upgrade and all that. Every time Lafayette messes with their water, Dayton takes the hit. Anything that's getting built, you guys will see that Dayton gets the increase, and Dayton, Battleground, all these small towns. What are your guys' thoughts on possibly, maybe in the TIF area, building our own well, and maybe doing our own wastewater system so the town actually makes that money? And the Clark's Hill clerk, she said that she had got a grant that actually helped them get their system at Clark's Hill. Because right now, you can ask Michelle, we don't make anything off the water. It's basically a joke, and it's just gonna keep going up.
Steve
Not on
Rocket
this
last year said about
wastewater.
at some time we might want to consider, and I was talking to him once, doing our own wastewater and stuff.
Yeah.
And he said, we just have to ask him more about it. We'll start talking to him. It's a good idea.
I mean, it's just something I was wondering if you guys thought about that, because the more Lafayette keeps jacking up those prices, you know, there's nothing that you can do when Lafayette says you guys have $1 per house raise or whatever they say, and they say wastewater's going up, until Dayton can take this back. And if Dayton could somehow build their own water and wastewater plant, the town would actually be profiting from that money instead of just shipping it off to Lafayette, and then you'd have the money for your full police departments.
But then you do go up to Mulberry, where some of our friends, they've got both, where Max works and everything. And you see on Facebook, they're always complaining about the rust in the water and all that. So apparently they can't control it. It's hard to control. They must have the rust problem like we did 30, 40 years ago, and that's why we put in all this. But I agree, we ought to check on it.
We have something a lot of towns don't have. We have Mark, who has, I don't know if he'd want to do it, but, you know, his licensing, he can add the chemicals. He's about the most qualified water technician you could ever have, and you already have him hired. I mean, towns
But
kill
I'm
to get
just saying,
something
in
like that.
Mulberry, they have a lot of that stuff too. It's hard to control that. You know?
Chlorine and salt, all kinds of stuff.
A lot over the system.
Yeah, because Lafayette's doing it for hundreds of thousands of houses.
Yeah.
But it's something to check into.
Yeah, it's just something that you know, want to put in your guys' ear to maybe look into, because
I'd asked Steve last year to start.
20 years down the road, you know, we could keep paying Lafayette and we could have it paid off in 20 years.
I could see a water tower coming in.
So yeah, I just wanted to bring that up so maybe something you guys could think about.
The water tower's still planned on a map back here along the south side of the tracks toward the interstate. Okay, anybody else? Anybody else?
What, no, Joe.
Wait, Joe.
Joe Dario, 543 Favorite Drive. Couple of things. First thing, that lady over there should be the happiest employee you guys have in town, because if there's a transition, you want to have a clerk there that's all the time, civil servant employee that knows what's going on and taking care of everything. You know, that's part of the decision that you should be making, and it should be a big part of it. But that's just an opinion. And unfortunately, I sit there and have them, and you know what my sergeant in the Army used to tell us about opinions. Anyway, I am the president of the Dayton Redevelopment Commission, and I read in the Dayton Watchdog that you folks last meeting were asking Reed how to get rid of the members of the board, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, or if that's correct even. But rather than ask him, you can ask me. If you want it, here's my resignation. Okay? My only crime is that I'm in favor of a housing subdivision down here. But these folks asked me to do something for the town I live in, the town I love, and I accepted that. If you guys want to talk to me, see what my philosophies are, I'd love to do it. If you don't, if you just want to change the commission, here's the resignation, and I'm happy to do whatever you'd like to do. So please let me know what you'd like.
I'd like to talk to you, but
Super.
it is a new board, and we want to pick some people that have our thought process.
Then here you
and all
go.
that, so here's my resignation.
Why, Ron? Why?
Why what?
You've got a group assembled to be a redevelopment commission,
I'm not gonna get into
you're
a fight.
taking resignations now.
Joe threw it down here. I said I would like to talk to him, number one. Number two, I said, we want people that have our philosophy, because we are voted in, and people want us to do certain things. He immediately says, here's my resignation. I'm not gonna beg the guy, and I'm not gonna do anything like that, so.
And
We're gonna look it over.
Please, I'm not asking you to. You guys do what you have to do. That's the good thing.
Like Ashley told me the other day, it's in its infancy. Some of the people didn't even come to the first meeting. We need to look at up there and look at everybody, and the board's can pick some. I guess, like Tyrone picked some. I don't know where your input, Tyrone, but just out of the blue, you picked 3 people. So we're gonna look at all the things and make some changes. Kimberly can't even run on it anyway, so.
I'll speak to that.
Technically, she can.
So whenever the redevelopment committee, people that came here to tell us how to choose what you want for your redevelopment, they said you need to look for business-minded people, professional people, because this is not some fun thing. You know, you're doing technical work. This is like a lot of like hard work. This isn't just, you know, not as fun as this town council, you know, but it's a job. It's like a real thing people have to do. So when we went out looking for people, the town president's allowed to pick 2 people. I said, I believe I picked 3 people. I said that I believe that the town council should only have 2 people on the redevelopment board, because why would you make 2 boards that have no say? This gives the people a choice. Even if you want to go to no members, but the reasoning I picked 2 people was because I wanted the utility board person, or not utility board, utilities and streets, because 90% of this whole thing that's going to be going on out there, you're going to be talking to utility board people and streets. So why not have the 2 people you need to talk to the most present at the meeting? They also said it's smart to have a financial advisor. So we found someone in town who was a financial advisor. You know, business owners, somebody who's also on a board. He's on the church board out there. He knows how this thing runs. We picked Kimberly Wright, who was an attorney, so we got all the things they wanted. They also said the last thing you want to do is get somebody who is not open to growth, because that is just the most ridiculous thing you could do for something where you're doing an economic growth development committee. So that being said, if you guys want to change it, you know, if you're saying we don't want, you know, Ashley, say you guys are like, we don't want Ashley and Mike on it, I would still go with that same philosophy of the utility board president and your streets, because that's going to be the biggest part. And then if you didn't want to do one of those 2, put your area plan person, but at least keep your utility board
or your streets person, maybe your area plan, but don't do more than 3, because then you have that whole thing of they're coming here and telling you this is what we voted for, and they come here and they vote for it. And then you're really gonna have people mad saying, well, why do we even have a committee that's the town board? Why don't they just do the town board meeting?
Yeah, some people, Sally and people said that the board should be reflective. You know, the board and the council need to work together, and it should be a mix, like you said. I have heard that some people say it shouldn't be anybody on the town council.
Which
It
might
should
be
a
great.
5-good mix. I like the philosophy, I think that's okay. But what I've been told is they shouldn't be council members, because you already have the council, and you need a reflection out there of 5 people that are thinking about the town and everything. Now, this town is 1,600 people. I'm sure there's plenty of people to pick from that would be energetic to do it, and would be good people to do it, and might be some of the same people, might not be some of the same people. I think if that thing was 1 month old, it's in its infancy, like Ashley said, nothing will really be done for, when I talked to him the other day, we talked for an hour or so, nothing would be done for a good year to a good year and a half.
Yeah.
So, this board came in, and we all need to do some talking or thinking, and we came in with philosophy that we'd like to give a little better philosophy on that area out there, so we'll go from
One
there.
other thing too on that area that, you know, the whole TIF thing is so complicated that, you know, I'm sure that you guys have looked at it and read it and been explained it, and you're like, I don't know what the heck's going on. I mean, one thing that I would do is when you're starting to look at the Yost Road and you're gonna put your TIF district in, really concentrate, do you really want to develop your TIF district on the east side of Yost Drive? Because that's slated and it shows that could be residential. You don't want to put any TIF in residential. So you really need to be careful, if you can, that you don't make it a TIF district that becomes residential, because you're going to have a hard time taking it from a TIF district back to normal.
Why did you guys put it in the TIF district then?
Well, it's
Your
that
board
it's that
put it on
area,
there.
but I don't think that the TIF isn't set yet. You can direct and
Yeah,
cut
but
where you
it's
want.
pretty much set. I mean, all your maps and guidelines are there for us to take over.
Well, that's
This is why we need to look into the people on it, or just like you say, I'm glad you mentioned it first, because if we'd mentioned about changing those lines, we probably would have got a lot of
Well,
negativity.
the thing is, you're going to have that meeting that they had talked about where the Economic Development Committee is going to come and talk to you, and that's the kind of things you can address. The other thing you need to look into is the redevelopment zone, not necessarily a TIF district. They said that can also use TIF funds. So when you're looking into that, you could use that section, you could make a park section that you could be using TIF district money once it gets big enough that actually isn't in the TIF district. So it's a really technical thing, but it's a thing that when you have your Economic Development Board talking to you, because you guys still make the final decision when they come to you about their meeting. But, you know, the reason that these people were picked is because, you know, public speaking is not fun. You know, you might pick somebody who thinks great, and then you put them up here and they're, you know, I'm kind of stuttering right now, and I've done it for the last 4 years.
One thing I think everybody needs to have the maps that area plan made, like what, 1998 or 99,
The
their
comprehensive plan.
outlook of that area up there. And I think the redevelopment committee, our peoples, the council, everybody needs to look at it and start thinking, what do we do? We need to change it, look at, part of it's gone because McAllister came in and wiped out 10 acres or so of it, so.
But there's still, it still shows residential past McAllister. I mean, I don't know if that'll ever happen, but it's not zoned.
I agree with you on that, residential.
And I'm sure anybody in Deerfield is not gonna want an industrial complex all the way backed up to like another McAllister the whole distance. Like, much rather have, if there was something to be built,
Well, they
be
didn't
some
want
houses or
McAllister
something or a
that
park.
addition on that, and I can see, you're right, they didn't want that, they certainly don't want more big trucks or whatever right up against their back door, so.
Well, you let a president resign from that commission that lives in the Deerfield area that would protect the interests that you're speaking of.
And we're already aware that you don't want residential in a TIF because it doesn't make any money. We're already aware of that. And the whole idea is to work with area plan on a
We are, and we're for annexation, we're for TIFting, we're for all this.
And I was speaking to you about the 3 tiers of this going on out here. It is definitely going to be in a non-residential fashion. Now, if a park comes in, that can act as a buffer between this development as it's supposed to be slated right now. The time frame of which this is all going, and this is years down. I mean, this is not going to happen.
It's a whole other board.
Probably, yeah, I mean, it's just, it's almost stagnant, if you want to call it that. So, I don't know Joe. I certainly would like to. And I would, at this point, really, if any kind of compromise were to come from me, is to leave this committee alone. I really feel that way.
Yeah, at least let it get started. You know, there's not gonna be, other than going through all the legal stuff to set it up, this committee, redevelopment committee, is really not
Yeah.
doing much of anything. At the end of the day,
That's the
this
reason-
town
that's-
council has the final say, you know, anytime there's gonna be rezoning going on or something like that, the redevelopment committee doesn't decide that stuff, this council does.
I understand that redevelopment committee is pretty important. It can sort of override the council on some things. But look, you guys said it's in its infancy. We had 1 meeting, some of the people didn't even come to it, 2 people didn't come, you and somebody else. And I think we just need to look at it and see who we'd like on it and stuff. And I don't think, it's not like it's 5 years into it or 2 years into it, or there's.
So I realize it plays into your philosophy to let people resign, you know, so you had, in essence, 2 resign tonight, okay? And I think it's a damn shame that you would take his letter of resignation. You know, you said that you'd like to sit down and talk to him, you know, give him his letter back, sit down and talk to him.
Actually, I would, I didn't throw it there.
You know?
Well, I think for what it is, it should be left alone at this time. I really do.
Yeah.
And there is gonna be a lot to do in the 4 years, but there's not gonna be any money there for anybody for the committee to even spend for the 4 years. It's gonna be setting it up to where it needs to be. And it's a lot to do.
We're talking about what goes in there. The people I talk to.
That's not gonna happen till.
Well, the capture date though is January 1 of 19, so, you know, there's probably no money to capture in 19, but, you know, there will be money captured, and they're looking more like 2021.
Now, I saw an old board put 30 acres of a semi-plant in bays where we're gonna work on stuff that's gonna be lit up 23 hours a day. The front 30 acres of what could have been a beautiful restaurants and different things for the townspeople to go up in there, and they okayed that. So, and some of those people are on this redevelopment committee.
I think that is not a 24-hour.
Let me finish. And I think that they said it was going to be 23 hours open. They said it wouldn't be 24, and I beat on them and beat on them. They finally said, well, 22 or 23 hours. Actually, it turns into the places I stop to on the highway. It's really a truck stop for maintenance, and you got guys waiting for hours, and they're walking the streets or running their semis around. I think it's going to be a nightmare for Scott Taylor. But anyway, that vision of that area, already we got a CNG gas station, which Mike, I think you said, there'd never be one in here. We got that at the beginning of our town. We're gonna have a truck stop, or a truck selling place there. And maybe it was some of those same people that are on the redevelopment committee. And I think there's been a lot of interest of other people, you know, and I think it's, this board got on here to look at these things. Maybe some will stay, and maybe they won't.
This board controls any rezoning, and everything that you've spoke about has to do with rezoning.